of another chapter, that part of the story of the statue's deep spiritual significance. The spirit of Detroit.
Yeah, that's the nice quick intro. When it's not a special occasion. Maybe they'll all be different. But I'm thinking about streamlining them all. How you doing, Bill? It's so good to see you again.
Hey, days when we talk ball are good days. I got a chance to speak to you briefly earlier to sort of set up what we're working on today, and I just to sort of think about all the things that go into trying to build an NFL franchise, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do, especially in the age of the salary cap, right? When you were Gil Brandt in the early to mid 1960s, right? You're a scout and then you get promoted and they say, hey, now you're the guy. And they say, hey, go out and build us a team. Well, scouting was, I won't say it was in its infancy, right? It was probably still in its early school days, though. He and his team were amongst the first to make it systematic, right? To start to put together what I call archetypes and prototypes. They're one of the first teams to do it. To say, this is what a corner looks like in our system. And to say to your guys, go find us guys that look like this.
Oh, wow. Gil Brandt.
Okay. Yep. That group was one of the first to start doing that. Because before that, it'd be like, go find us players. And they would go watch some players, talk to their friends in coaching, say, who did you think was good? Who gave you trouble, right? They would go say, oh, that guy's good, right? And that was very, frankly, to use a military term, grabastic, right? Just sort of here and there and catch can. You get a little lucky. Hey, this kid that flew under the radar, but your friend coached against him and said, okay, I know he's slow and he's got a bad back and he's nearsighted, but he's really good. And so you would get sort of accidentally great players landing in certain places. And then some guys were just good at it, right? Some people are just good at finding talent. Those guys who were good at it would just go out and be good at it. Mm-hmm. The Browns were good at it. They started the first baby steps towards modern systematic scouting. The 40-yard dashes because of them. Actually measuring guys and weighing guys. Believe it or not, Lamar, guys would literally show up well into the 1950s, and teams sometimes would never have actually seen them in person. Never seen them in person. So they'd be like, oh, you're way smaller than we thought. Well, too late now. You drafted me, right? So you had teams first really start down that path when the Browns came over from the AAFC, the All-American Football Conference, and brought some of the stuff with them. Paul Brown had the advantage, of course, he was also a naval officer, right? Because that's what he did for the Navy, was coach on what would have been one of the best football teams in American history, right? At Great Lakes Naval Air Station. He had Oliver Graham, he had Marion Motley, he had a bunch of terrific football players at Great Lakes. He was able to basically take all the best football players that were in the Navy and say, yeah, I know you're a gunner's mate, but how'd you like to play football, right? And he would get all these guys, yeah, I know you're supposed to be flying airplanes, but what better way to, win the war for America than playing football? So he would get all these guys that were in the Navy, got either drafted or joined the Navy, who he knew were good football players, and scoop them all up.
Yeah, so the Browns really are the fathers of scouting.
They're one of them, yeah. There's a few other teams that started us down the road. The Eagles, right, through Greasy Neal and Bucko Kilroy. I mean, if you're going to talk like the real history of scouting, we could do a whole 3-4 podcast about sort of the early, going from literally just guys picking up and looking in magazines. Because believe it or not, hello there. Good to see you, Motor C. Mia. Literally, just like when you were 11, 12 years old, guys would pick up magazines and say, oh, that guy looks good. And they would draft him, right? Oh, he's an All-American, 2-time All-American? He must be good. I'm not joking. Teams would do that. It took the Browns to sort of move people away. Some teams still did it, though. But the Browns started to move people away from that. And then it really all changed. The AFL, the two big impetus for the big change were the AFL giving the NFL competition and people like Gil Brandt, right, who wanted to systemize and regularize scouting.
Right.
And then a really good book was written by Steve Belichick, right? The father of Bill Belichick. And so called Scouting Methods. You should definitely read it if you're interested in sort of learning about the development of. And he worked for Paul Brown at one point. In fact, Steve Belichick
Work for Paul Brown.
Yeah, Steve Belichick had played for and worked for Paul Brown. In fact,
impressive.
So you get that's where sort of the beginning of modern scouting starts to come about. But like I said, we could do a whole show on that, and probably not the show you want to do tonight. So
yeah,
but
love it. I love it still because for me, I'm a YouTuber, and now that my seasons have gone late into January,
right,
I myself not knowing prospects until probably the last game or after the Super Bowl. But then what happens is I get ready for things now in I don't know, like segments. Like I get ready for free agency. I do like 8 hours of work on free agency like every other day. And then I'll work on the prospects a little bit, like get familiar. I used to try to devote myself to understanding the prospects beforehand, but with the season, and you got to cover the season, then you have to edit, then you have to get improvements on your editing, and you have to get feedback, engagement. I'm only one person. So I have like people coming to me like, hey, you know about Jackson Joy Hibbert, or how about Jackson Meeks? You know Jackson Meeks? I have no idea what you're talking about. And then my scouting really starts to take place after the third week of free agency or the second week of free agency, and then I start doing things in like bulk, breaking down wide receivers, getting familiarized with this, that, and the third, and all this process is getting me better because I swear, like when we were losing, we knew who the prospects was in December.
Right. So you would finish up the Thanksgiving game and then start watching some college tape right after it. I got you right. You spend the next several weeks just digging deep into everyone from the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10. Right. I got it. Conference USA. Yeah.
You said guys that Gil Brandt developed prototypes and archetypes.
They're one of the first teams to do that, right? So, and then there's a black man named Floyd A.C. Wells. Judge Wells is his nickname, and he was never a full-time football scout. He was an impresario, a community activist, a newspaper man, photographer. He did some of everything. He's like Zelig. If you ever see the Woody Allen, okay, he was those people's like you see pictures of him and like there's Malcolm X and there's like he knew Muhammad Ali, he knew Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he knew some of everybody. Yeah. He helped to bring he knew George Foreman. He's those people that seem to know everybody. He helped to bring that big basketball game in '68, I think it was, to Houston, where when number one played number two. And at the time, UCLA had an 88 game. Was it 88 games? Some of that 80 something game winning streak. And of course, they got beat by Houston because Jabbar had the scratch on his cornea. And so Elvin Hayes, which people knew Elvin Hayes was good, but he had a great game against the best team anyone ever seen, which is UCLA. And now that helped to set up when they met again in the tournament. And of course, UCLA won in the tournament. But because that was when they won 11 out of 13 NCAA tournaments at one point. UCLA was just an unstoppable killing machine at that point. But he was the person who drove the train of getting that game to Houston, where UCLA played University of Houston. So he just was involved in everything. But one of the things he wanted to do was make sure that the Houston Texans, which later became the Kansas City Chiefs, had black players, right? Because that wasn't a guaranteed thing, particularly in the South in the early 1960s. So you have to remember that the SEC and had not, the color line had not been broken.
Yeah, integrated,
Right, had not integrated. A few ACC schools had, the first one being Maryland, and then a few followed suit, but not all the ACC schools had. The Big 12 had been, Big 8 is what it was at the time, had been integrated going back a long time ago. But not all of the schools were integrated, but all the sort of northwestern-ish ones, like the ones like Iowa State and all that had integrated. In fact, famously, of course, the Iowa State Stadium is named after the late Jack Trice. So, one of their first black football stars there. So some of these schools had integrated much earlier, but the football schools in Texas, not so much. So he managed to get an audience with the Hunt family, with at that point Lamar Sr. and the other elder brothers who ran the the oil firm, and said, he was a very persuasive man apparently, and said, one, I'm not just going to tell you you need to do this, for humanitarian reasons. You're going to win more football games, right? He said, you're going to
Yeah.
win way more football games.
And this
he
was a
right.
black man. This was a black
Yes.
man who was
Yes.
trying to
AC
integrate
Wells
sport.
broke the scouting color line for the AFL. He was first AFL, but he was never a full-time football person. He always did a million
Other
different things.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because the two guys that broke the color line were both guys that didn't come to it through being football coaches or players. Really, they both came to it from being like community people. So Bill Nunn, who was the father of the late great Bill Nunn, the actor who played Radio Raheem, he of course was the guy that helped build the Steelers in the 60s and 70s, and he was a newspaper man. His father had founded the Pittsburgh Courier. And so that he worked for the Pittsburgh Courier.
I know that story. I know that story because
that's how he got the audience with Art Rooney Sr. and basically cursed him out. He said this team's terrible and white, and these two things are not a coincidence. Like, your team is very white and very bad. And he said, "What do you want me to do about it? Like, how do I find black players?" He said, "Well, go. I mean, it's not that hard." But he said, "Okay, I'm going to help you." So he started helping him, right? And so he started using his black college All-American team to help the Steelers find black players. And he directly is responsible for them getting Donnie Shell and directly responsible for them getting John
Mel
Stalwart.
Blunt, John Stalwart. Okay.
Well, all three of those are all directly, and L.C. Greenwood. He brought them some of the really most important players that helped to build the 70s Steelers that turned once again into one of the great dynasties.
But he was never a GM though. He was just a scout.
No, he was never even a full-time person. I mean, he took some time off from running the newspaper, and at times he was basically a full-timer, but he wasn't really a full-timer. He was always kind of a half in, half out. And there were times in his career when he would, retire. But they always kept it on office there for him. And then when he got bored or whatever, he'd show back up and scout again.
Right.
Whenever he basically felt like it.
And that's why sometimes I get mad at myself, because I personally see Brad Holmes as a person. I don't necessarily see Brad Holmes as a black person. So when I see Brad Holmes, because it's normal for me to be around black people, so I see black people as people, So so Brad Holmes he's way more important because of what he's doing and what he did and what he's way more important. And sometimes that goes like, because it's normal to have a black GM, because I've had Mayhew, I've had that's kind of normal to me, like. But I know that
kind of spoiled, right? Yeah,
I've been spoiled. But Mayhew's thing was best player available and defensive line. Like, he couldn't scout corners. This guy can't scout corners. Which
is so weird because Mayhew was at least a safety. I scouted Mayhew, right? I scouted both these guys. I watched them both play. I watched Mayhew at Bowling Green, and I watched, of course, Brad Holmes at
Yeah, I think that both of those guys, have literally, like, I know fans that, of all colors that will bring Brad Holmes in their house, and they appreciate Brad Holmes. And, he's won Executive of the Year twice in a row.
Correct.
He has the cachet, with the Rams organization, starting in PR department, working from printing out flyers all the way up to scouting, all the way up to senior PR scouting. And he has a 20-year career where he's coming in after a Super Bowl, and he's still building that team and roster. And I appreciate seeing him. But a lot of times I gotta wind back. Like, I'm talking about a black dude. It's like there's not too many black GMs. I'm talking about
the number at least is headed in the right direction. I'll say that.
Right. It's headed in the right direction. So
we were stuck at very low single digits for a long time. We were at 0 several years, and then we would get 1 or 2. It would never get above 3 for the longest. When we got past the 3 barrier, I was like, "Woo!" That something's happening. Things are changing.
Right. Because I don't know how the guy in Cleveland has a job doing what he's done, and I don't know how Kwesi has a job in Minnesota. But
now Kwesi just had that team. Admittedly, they didn't do much in the playoffs, but they looked very different from the team that he first inherited. Let's be clear and honest about that. Now, he's, once again, a guy didn't come from football, right? He's a basketball player. He comes from hardcore analytics, business analytics, and is now learning to apply that to football. He's not a football guy. And there's good and bad things about that. He doesn't have bad football guy habits, right? He doesn't have all those bad football guy habits that football guys have where they just fall in love and it's emotional, but they're not being analytical about it. They just like his guy because I like the cut of his jib, that kind of stuff. I just like this kid. Yeah, you notice he's not very fast. I don't care. He's not very strong. I don't care. He's just a football player. All those football guy things kick in and you end up picking some guy who's not as good as the player you could have had, but it's just emotions, something the kid said during an interview or something you saw on tape just makes your heart go pitter pat. And now you can't see anything but him, right? The good thing about a guy who's not a football guy, he's not emotional about these guys. He doesn't, he gets to know them as people and stuff like that when he goes through the interview process, but he's not going to just fall in love the way that sometimes football guys fall in love with the prospect. The downside is he doesn't always know what he's looking at. In terms of just just trying to be honest about the good and the bad side of it.
Right.
He's learning on the job.
Right.
Because he knows. Yeah. Go ahead.
Me personally, I noticed that certain teams, especially when it comes to Queasy, or matter of fact, when it comes to Lions, they do certain things well. They do certain things well. They draft certain positions so well that I'm never scared of them drafting a position. Like you're yourself in Pittsburgh land, right? You yourself love Pittsburgh, right? I've only known
my
Pittsburgh
emotions are less tied in than they used to be. I'm able to be honest and analytical about. I'm no longer emotionally tied to the team the way I was as a kid.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm able to look at them very clear, very, very clear eyes and say, get ready for 10-7, kids. It's coming again. I know. But you have to understand how the team is. Team construction, I guess is what we're going to talk about a lot today, is very complicated, but it doesn't have to be. But most people complicate it for reasons that they think are good reasons at the time that they're doing it, right?
Right.
So there's a few different schools of thought on how you build a team, right? Some teams say, go get your quarterback, right? No matter what. I don't care if there's nobody else on your team, just go get a quarterback. There's some people who truly believe that. No matter what else, you just go get a quarterback and you figure it out from there. That's how some people truly think you build a team. There are people who believe that you have to have the team at least at some point of functionality and then you go get your quarterback. There are people who say that the quarterback is he's just one of 11. Now they don't really mean that, but they think of him. We'll get him when we get him. If he fits what we like and he's our kind of guy, we'll bring him in. For a long time, that's what the Ravens were like. Right now, they kind of deviated from that a little bit when they went and got Lamar. But look at their quarterbacks before Lamar, right? It's just kind of dudes, right? Now sometimes dudes with really strong arms, but they weren't concerned about this guy being a superstar. Right. They didn't care about that stuff. They didn't. Hey, he's one of 11, right? That was their philosophy for a long time.
Right.
And they changed. Right, they changed a little bit when they saw Lamar and said, "Okay, this playmaking stuff, man, maybe we're onto something. Maybe there's something to this being able to just make things happen."
Right, because I believe that a lot of people say that quarterbacking in general it's not as elite as it was. It's terrible now. I find that very convenient now that there are a lot of African American quarterbacks in the game. I find it very convenient that the quarterback play is so terrible. But you've always had 5 to 7 guys. That's always been it. You've always had 5 to 7 guys, and I think now you probably have 4 guys. You probably have, Burrow, Mahomes, Lamar, Josh. You probably have like 5 guys. If I'm skipping one, I'm
right. Herbert's on some people's list, not on other people's list. It depends on how you make your list. Right. But even let's look at the 83, right? Everyone talks about the 83 draft. That was a terrific draft. It was one of the historic drafts for quarterbacks. You had Elway, right? You have Kelly,
Dan Marino.
You have Marino, right? You have this tremendous, even Ken O'Brien, though he's not in the same breath, he still had a nice NFL career. You have this great draft, but Montana's still around, right? He's still hanging around, but you have this crop come in. You didn't have 20 great quarterbacks. You didn't have 10 great quarterbacks. You had that crop from 83. You had, like I said, the aforementioned Montana, who was still a pretty good player. You had Steve Young, who was at one point obviously backing up Montana. People thought he was good, but people weren't really sure. They'd seen bits and pieces of him in his time with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. but he hadn't really had a chance to show what he could do until Montana got hurt. So you don't have, I mean, then Randall Cunningham comes along to sort of be the spiritual godfather to some of the quarterbacks that we're talking about, like Lamar, like Jaden, right? We'll see what happens with a guy like Justin Fields, but their sort of spiritual godfather is Randall Cunningham. And then, but the point is that you've never had 10 elite quarterbacks. You've had, as you said, 5, 6 in a maybe depending on how you define elite, you might have 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
Right there you go.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you see it?
There it is. Eagles, right? Bucks, Rams, all built the rest of their team first. And yes, exactly. Yeah. And here's the good news about doing it that way. You're not saying to your quarterback, "Hey, take this carcass and drag it somewhere." Right? You're not saying that to your quarterback.
Right.
All right. You're saying we have a functioning football team. We need to do these things in these situations.
Right.
And your team is now built to go do that.
Right. Right.
It can work both ways. I mean, the Cowboys were trash when they drafted Troy. They were utter trash. Troy Aikman's lucky to be alive. I still remember that body bag game against the Eagles where they just about ran out. Those were all their quarterbacks, right? He got knocked out. They knocked Walsh out. They knocked out Pelor.
Play with the punter. Had to play with the punter.
Right.
The quarterback.
They called it the body bag game because literally they were one more injury away from like going into the stands and being like, who's played some quarterback? So it was also to get a different era. Like you could do pretty much whatever quarterbacks in those days, but they just got this kid and said, okay, we're going to be truly terrible, but they liked his toughness. They liked his ability. And they said, hey, we're just going to, tough this out for a while. And of course, eventually they became a mini dynasty. But yeah, he took an absolute hellacious beating at first.
Right. I think that, everybody has, every era's had 5 to 7 guys that were elite and the rest of them were guys. For me, Jared Goff is like, matter of fact, let me break this down. Okay. I want you to clarify. This is my philosophy.
Okay.
I think the franchise quarterback now means differently what it meant in 2006. The franchise quarterback used to be, this is our guy. He's going to lead the charge, throw 50 touchdowns, and he's going to play the position of quarterback, and he's a quarterback. In 2006, maybe 2010, he's going to be Brett Favre, and everybody was just looking for a Brett Favre. Everybody was just looking for a Matt Ryan, a Stafford even.
All right, and then a guy that you drafted and developed with. I mean, Favre was sort of a slight. They developed him. They didn't draft him. But
exactly.
The Falcons didn't develop
do nothing with him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We didn't like him, right? And there was a power struggle.
He messed up. He was fat. He was not taking it serious. He was,
drunk
he was drunk all the time.
Meetings, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that was because he thought he wasn't getting a chance to start. And I mean, it was a chicken or the egg situation. If you talk to Jerry Glanville will say he probably would have. He was talented. We knew he had talent. That's why I had him win my bets for me, right? Hey, country, could you show that man you could throw a ball, such that? But they didn't believe in him, and he didn't give them reason to believe in him. So it was once again chicken or the egg. He didn't take it seriously because he thought he's getting screwed out of a chance to even compete for the job.
And it was his actions that were screwing him for a chance for the job.
Correct. But now, so once again, but you're right. It's changed.
Yeah, and now in 2025, I was about to say 24 for some reason. In 2025, if you're a quarterback, in my opinion, we believe that you are how we believe in quarterback, how the quarterback position is supposed to be played. So whatever your style is, we rock with that. Josh, we rock with the 50-yard bombs, Josh. That's what we want to see. We rock with the toughness and the running quarterback stuff. Oh, Lamar, we rock with the playmaker. That's what we believe, that you put it all on the field, from the head to the shoulders to the legs. Golf, like Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, their quarterback play is much like their decision making. Their quarterback play is much like their decision making. They want to be accurate, very quick. They want to be if it's there, if it's there, if it's not there. Throw it away. That they want to be very precise with their decision making, how they believe in quarterback, and that's where they believe quarterback should be played. So nobody can come in here just I remember like back in the day, like with Stafford, and I don't know if you knew this, everybody tried to control Stafford that came in here. Everybody. It was about harnessing. How do we harness Stafford? And yeah, how do we bring him in? Like if you have a Brett Favre, he's a Brett Favre. Rock with what he's doing. Bring in guys like Nate Burleson. Bring in speedsters like Titus Young. Rock with what he's doing. Bring in Calvin John. No, we're going. This is what we believe in, and I think that's what it is now. So when you're a quarterback like Herbert or whatever, or Dak, they're paying you because they believe not only in you, but your style is fitting them. You're a representative of them. And, I can't say nothing about Goff. What are your thoughts on Goff? We had a question like that. What are your thoughts on Goff?
So I'm glad you asked. So I was part of the scouting community that thought that Jared Goff needed a certain kind of situation to thrive, but that he was capable of being a very successful quarterback. He came from a system, right? He played for Sonny Dykes. He came from a system where they threw the ball. It wasn't like he was, right? He didn't come from some team where they ran triple option, my friends. They threw the ball at Cal. And he had some talent around him. I'm not saying he was like, he wasn't throwing to plumbers or whatever, but it wasn't like he was throwing to superstars, though. He had a couple of good players on that team, but he wasn't throwing to studs. And he showed when he was asked, to work through things that he did have the brain to run an NFL type offense. He comes from a family of athletes. His father rather famously was a catcher briefly in the major leagues. So he understood some of the stuff about the pressures. And of course, very famously, right, bounced back from a 5 interception game while he was in college. So
oh, you don't have to read that. You don't have to read that.
I read it, but we can discuss it maybe later. But yeah, I want to finish the point I'm making. He is your sort of classic inside the lines type quarterback, right? We want to color inside the lines. When you get a guy like Jared Goff, you're saying our offense wants to color inside the lines. We're not looking to disrupt. We're not looking to create too much. We want to design it and then execute the design of it. Hey, how's the play design? Let's do that.
Yeah.
Right.
and check this out. I feel that same way about Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold. I feel that same way about any McVay quarterback. This McVay tree that's in it's infuriated me. But now I think McVay has like 6 head coaches. He has like 6 head coaches. He has the guy in the Vikings. He has the Dolphins guy. He's got Kubiak. I believe Kubiak came from him, or he came from Kubiak. They worked together at some point.
Right, they worked together, and of course, Clint Kubiak is the son of Gary. So a little bit of the Shanahan tree from the other side, right, from the dad's side, sort of trickles down through there because he's been around the Shanahan since he was literally a ball boy for the Denver Broncos. So he and Kyle Shanahan were at one point. One was like senior ball boy or whatever, and one was like junior ball boy for the Denver Broncos.
And don't forget the defensive guys he had. He had Saleh as well as D'Amico Ryans. And what's funny is, check this out. I found something out about McVay. That Atlanta coach. What's his name? I forget what his name is. He's the coach of Atlanta Falcons right now. He's a black dude. Yeah, Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris fired McVay in Tampa Bay just to get hired by him in LA last year. That's so crazy. That's like 16 years apart. He had to fire this dude, and McVay went off to the UFL or something, or the Europe. He just learned offense that way, and then got a call from John Gruden. All these guys come from John Gruden, and John Gruden obviously comes from Holmgren and that West Coast tree, but there's something special about that crop of guys, that Shanahan. There's something special about, because all of them, McVay, LaFleur, like brothers, all them guys, you could tell by what they like to do with their quarterbacks.
Correct.
Like you could tell they could take a Darnold, they could take a Purdy, they could take a guy Garoppolo, they could take Tua, they could take these mid to range, mid 20s to mid 10 guys and make them like great off bootleg play action. and color inside the lines, like you said with Jared Goff. Jared Goff wasn't nothing before the West Coast offense. He was nothing. That first rookie year with Jeff Fisher, and he's in 5 wide and shotgun all day. He was nothing.
Right now, some of that should be put on Fisher, but yes, I know what you're saying. Like, you have to know what your guy's good at. You have to know what your guys are good at. So
yeah.
So that it's once again another chicken or the egg situation. I think that most of the guys who are drafted to play quarterback in the NFL, particularly if they're drafted in the first 4 or 5 rounds, in the right situation, could have some level of success.
Yeah.
Right. It's situation, talent, all that stuff. How they're being used, what they're being coached to do is incredibly important. I think people underestimate how much situation matters. There are so many quarterbacks that you think of as busts. If they go to a different situation, wouldn't be bust, and vice versa. Geno Smith was a guy that people had given up for dead, right? People had given up for dead, right? We just saw people about to do the same with Darnold.
Yeah.
They're about to give him up for dead.
Yeah.
Trey Lance is if he goes the right situation, watch, it'll happen all over again.
Right. And you know what they need? Those quarterbacks need that West Coast Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh is still affecting us from the grave. Yep. They need that Bill Walsh. And Bill Walsh started in Cleveland and then went out over there. Okay. So Cleveland had a genius. That's how terrible it is. That's how, am I correct in that fact? They had a genius in the building. They had everything in the building and still never won nothing.
So what happened was Paul Brown had been kicked out of the team he founded, right? And he starts the Bengals, and he has a young quarterbacks coach named Bill Walsh, and they have this brilliant young quarterback named Greg Cook, who's about to be one of the great quarterbacks of all time, and he suffers it late in his rookie year, suffers an injury.
Okay, Bengals. Bengals.
Yeah. Right. I knew what you meant though. Suffers an injury that is very similar to the injury that Drew Brees suffered. But unfortunately, he suffers this injury long before arthroscopic surgery is in usage. So they cut through his entire rotator cuff like you carving up a Thanksgiving turkey. I wish I were joking. But I'm not. They literally just through everything, right, to free up the shoulder joint again, so it would come down, so it moved, because it was in the upright and locked position like your tray on an airplane. He couldn't put his arm down, and of course nowadays they can run a camera in there on the endoscope and then say, oh, we just need to move this out of here, this is out of place, and then boom, bing, bing, and 7-8 months later he's throwing again, and then within a year he's ready to be a great football player. Well, no, this is not what's happening. In the early 1970s, they just cut through everything, and he manages to play again, but he is in utter agony, and unfortunately leads to him developing a drinking habit, and then he dies young. But if you ever want to watch one of the great what might have beens, and he's a hometown kid, right? He went to the University of Cincinnati. He had turned that Cincinnati football team into a really good football team while he was there. He's literally a combination of Joe Montana and John Elway. He has the quick feet. He's mobile. He has a cannon for an arm. And when they lose him, their backup quarterback is a guy from BYU named Virgil Carter. BYU at the time was a triple option team, right? This is before they'd switched to really a forerunner of West Coast offense. One of the first teams to run West Coast offense was actually Brigham Young University, even before it catches on in the NFL. And so many of those guys that coached under Walsh, like, well, amongst others, a young man by the name of all things of Andrew Neil Reed, right, was an assistant offensive line coach under Norm Chow. Then when Norm Chow becomes coordinator, he gets promoted to offensive line coach. Chow was a co-coordinator with a guy named Doug Scoville, who later went over and was the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. And unfortunately died running on the treadmill there, but left behind, his lineage of developing West Coast offense. So one of the first places to have successful West Coast offense is not even the NFL. It's at BYU. BYU goes from being kind of a also ran program, and then suddenly change their offense entirely, and it's starting to start producing not only wins but Heisman Trophy winners. Do
you think Bill Walsh stole them? Did he steal it?
It's a combination of things. It's a combination of things. Everybody thinks so. Another guy that worked with him is a guy named Homer Rice. If you want to sort of look up other great quarterback developers, look up Homer Rice. Homer Rice is the guy that turned Tommy Kramer into a Heisman Trophy finalist when he was at Rice. No relation, but he was one of the first. He took elements of what we know as West Coast offense and combined it of elements of what we now call spread offense.
Okay.
And Tommy Kramer passed for about 3,000, almost 3,000 yards and rushed for 800 in an 11-game season at Rice. So it's a combination of things. Homer Rice had a lot of interesting ideas. He's in the room with young Bill Walsh, and suddenly they have to change their offense entirely. They were a Sid Gilman type offense at first, and then they lose this potentially generational quarterback. And now they have to change everything. This weak-armed but quick-footed guy who'd run triple option is now your quarterback. Oh, crap. So they only have a few weeks to fix this, right? It's not like they have months. They weren't knowing this guy was going to lose his football career before
the
this.
bootleg, the flood,
all that stuff.
Yeah, the whole built, the stretch, the
all that, right? The reading the triangle, the horizontal, right? All that is happening. All is that because of Virgil Carter, because they lose their, and then later Kenny Anderson comes along. By that time, Walsh was on his way out the door because of his fight with Paul Brown. Paul Brown thought that Walsh was getting too much credit, blah blah blah. And he thought that basically there's only room for one of us kind of situation. Walsh moves on to Stanford, and then of course finds his way to the 49ers, and the rest is history.
I don't think the Browns ever won a championship either. And you
they haven't won a championship since Paul Brown was. So they haven't won since Paul Brown left, right? Paul Brown was the last time they won one. Paul Brown was there, and Jim Brown was there the last time they won a championship. They still had, they're still an unstoppable. That was an nearly unstoppable franchise. They won 7 championships in a 10-year period, right? Including the ones they won with the old AAFC before the merger.
Okay, because I keep forgetting Paul Brown discovered the Cincinnati team as well, Cincinnati Bengals.
He founded them as well. Yep.
Yeah. So
he got kicked out of his own team, but he was a tough guy to work for. He wasn't a guy that was warm, or he sort of looks like Tom Landry, only offensive minded. He was a guy that literally wore a suit into the office. Like looked like he was going to go, run a marketing firm or something. He didn't hug guys. He didn't tell them. I mean, if you won a championship, you might smoke a cigar with you, right? That would be like a big moment, but he wasn't a big emotional guy. Okay, so back to Brad Holmes.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Go ahead with your Brad Holmes comment. Go ahead.
Okay, so it's clear to me now. Brad Holmes is a little bit of each of the major schools of thought of building a team. He is a guy who played football and understands football from a player's standpoint, right? He was a defensive tackle and a pretty decent one. He's worked in really smart organizations before in the past and stolen ideas from them, right? Because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And like then he's brought in, right. He's brought other, right, exactly. And he's brought on his own sort of stuff as well. Stuff he wanted to do maybe before, but his bosses said, nah, I don't think so. And of course, he's given a lot of credit, rightfully so, for Aaron Charles Donald, right? That's something that he's largely responsible for. There are people who thought he was too small and too this and too that. And he said, he could be 15 pounds lighter than he is, and he'd still be great. Like he was able to see past some of that stuff. So the things that he cares about and the things that Detroit by extension cares about, we talked about something. Well, football temperament, right? Does this guy have what we call football temperament? Does he wake up thinking about football? Does he fall asleep thinking about football? They really care about that. They really do. I know you're shaking your head. I know you are, but it's something they care about. I know, I get how it sounds, but it's something they care about. They care about, does this guy really, everyone says, do you really love football? But they really care about that. They really do. That's a big part of how they evaluate. They do want big guys. They like physicality. They do like physicality. They will occasionally stray from it and get a guy who's like undersized. They really love his football temperament or things like that. But generally speaking, if there's like a tie between two prospects, they'll go with the bigger guy, right? If they play the same position. The tiebreaker's size usually. They do like big if they can get it, especially at the positions where they think big matters. And I think they now have started to add more explosives. Oh, I'm a big Hendon Hooker guy. I was a big Alan Hooker guy. I scouted both of them. I scouted the father and the son.
You know what's going on today? You know what happened today?
It depends. What do you mean?
Well, yesterday, Brad Holmes. First of all, Hendon Hooker was not going to do good here. I just know the fan base. I know what they're about. I know who goes to the games, and I know the demographic of the city.
I got you.
So I know who goes to the games, and I know who cares about the games, and I know who, I just know because they bring up Andre Ware, they bring up relics from the past that I never knew, and that's what they do. So when Hendon Hooker came to town, I seen people go live like on the draft. So what YouTubers do, they be live for the draft and everything. And there was a particular dude, Motor City Mania, right? There's one dude, Motor City Mania, and he was live and everything. And when they drafted Hendon Hooker, he was so sad. He was so depressed because much of people's relationship to golf is like he's like their best friend. He's like their he's like my son. He's like my so they have this appreciation for golf because he's just a normal guy. Because golf is just very likable. He's very likable. Like even if you don't like him, like I've seen his interviews. I'm like, even if I don't like this dude, I would like this dude. Right. So they look at golf like they're them, and then they look at the quarterback that's taking his job, and they put socioeconomics.
There's some socioeconomics. There's some cultural. There's some.
So they already hated him. So I already knew they hated him. They was just looking for an excuse to hate him. So yesterday, Brad Holmes was asked about Josh Allen. Or not Josh Allen, not Josh Allen. Some guy named Kyle Allen. We signed Kyle Allen. So we signed Kyle Allen, and Brad Holmes was like, we're it's going to be a competition. It's going to be a quarterback competition. Hendon Hooker, when Goff was hurt in the playoff game, we didn't necessarily trust him. We didn't feel confident that he was there and he was going to be there. Like he wasn't ready, right? He wasn't ready. And so it's going to be a true competition. And Brad Holmes did not have to say this, but he did. He said, no one's going to give you a job. If you're quarterback 2, just go out there and compete for quarterback 2 and get it done. Now, I'm thinking to myself, like, y'all ain't stupid. Okay? Y'all ain't stupid. Y'all have no quarterback 2. Y'all haven't had a quarterback 2. And since Bridgewater is signed with whoever he signed with, he was the only legitimate playoff quarterback 2 there was. He was literally a quarterback 2 that had playoff wins and games under his, he had multiple wins. He went 5-0 when he was, So people ran with that. And then obviously Dan Campbell had to double down. Like, you try to help a guy and you try to do this and you try to do, you try to speak to him. But some things you just got to go out there and compete. I'm like, y'all want Hendon Hooker to compete right now. Personally, for my chat, I just let this guy go. Just like y'all let James Houston go, who was a terrific talent to me. Just let him go. Because I'm tired of this group of grit guys. When they see talent that works, it's a threat to the talent that's there, or it's a threat to whatever it is. And the fans just eat that up. Like, Hendon can't play. Well, Hendon's 27. It's not gonna work. But the same fans want to draft Jackson Dart. The same fans want to draft. It's crazy to me, and I get passionate about it because I know what they're saying. I don't think last year it was. I don't think I had journalists on my channel. Journalists. I don't think this is a PhD level offense. He has to understand that this is a PhD level. I had journalists on my channel tell me that and you know what's funny? I don't believe everybody's the R word. I believe everybody's just ignorant.
I'm going to go with that too. So here, let me say this about that, since you brought it up. Hendon Hooker knows football, right? He is a second generation black quarterback. His father, Alan Hooker, was a terrific player who was born too early, just straight up, right? His father was just born too early. His father went to an HBCU, was one of the all-time great HBCU quarterbacks at NC Central, and just didn't get a chance because it was too early. If Alan Hooker comes along 25 years later, the NFL has a very different read on him. And he probably doesn't end up at NC Central even, but that's neither here nor there. Alan Hooker knows football. If he doesn't make it, it's not because of his brain. I'm just gonna tell you straight up, that's not the issue.
I know he's not dumb. That's the crazy part about it, because he was calling plays. I know it. I watched all his interviews. I know he's not dumb. So if he doesn't make it, what go ahead. What you're saying?
He obviously he had a very severe, poorly timed knee injury in his draft process that took him off the chance to even become, a draftable player. He would have been drafted if not for the injury, and that's why he is even seen as a backup. Right? He would have been fighting for a starting job because he would have been drafted much earlier if he doesn't get hurt. People
Yeah.
forget this guy was going to be a Heisman Trophy finalist if he doesn't get hurt. Like people have very short memories apparently. Hendon Hooker was a terrific player in college. Terrific player in college. He got hurt. So he's fighting an uphill battle because of missing basically a whole year of football at the exact wrong time to miss a whole year of football. There's no worse time basically to be unable to do football things. Like you'd be better off getting hurt your freshman year, right? I mean, that's if you want to get hurt your freshman year. That's when you then heal up and then stay healthy. Like that would have been the better move. Getting hurt late in your it was just a terribly timed injury. He's a guy who's going to end up somewhere and end up being at least a high level backup for somebody. Maybe it's not here, maybe it's not Detroit, but somewhere he's going to be very good.
Because go ahead.
I was going to say that you mentioned Josh Allen and Kyle Allen. So he knows Josh Allen and Kyle Allen because they work out together out with Jordan Palmer in California. And if you go out and watch them, okay, what's noticeable obviously is Josh Allen's arm. It's stupid. Like he's out there with college and NFL quarterbacks and nobody can touch him. The only person who comes close is Joe Milton, who's also out there working out. Milton's close. And then there's a huge drop off after Allen and Milton. And Hendon Hooker is a guy that he's very accurate, very nice mechanics. It's a good enough NFL arm. It doesn't resemble Joe Milton. It doesn't resemble Josh Allen. Kyle Allen has a good arm. So he and Kyle Allen are actually somewhat similar players, except for one is how do I put it? More palatable to some people for whatever reason. But he and Josh Allen are very close. Josh Allen said he talked about it, misses it right in the quarterback room in Buffalo. Very famously, speaking of quarterback competitions, he famously had a quarterback competition at Texas A&M, right, with Kyler Murray, and they both left, right? That's how Kenny the Thrill Hill was the man for a while after Johnny Manziel in Texas A&M. But very famously, right, these two 5-star Texas quarterbacks battled it out. Allen's from Arizona actually, but in Texas at that time,
right.
And for this job, but Kyle Allen is going to be a coach one day, probably a successful one. He'll probably do well as a coordinator, and by the time he's 37, somebody will be throwing a head coaching job at him. You know how this works out for guys like him. It'll be go ahead.
I just feel in case of the Hendon Hooker thing. First and foremost, I want to say something about the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
We have not won in 61 years a championship.
That
to have archaic opinions about the quarterback position, and this comes from Joey. This comes from Joey Harrington. We wanted to run him out the building year 1, year 2. They wanted to run Joey Harrington out, and then on Thanksgiving in 2006, Joey Harrington whooped them from Miami. Miami won that game, and he threw 3 touchdowns, and they had to shut up. Since then, since Joey with Stafford, they didn't blame no quarterbacks. They didn't blame Stafford. I was a Stafford guy for a long time. Stafford was like my guy for a long time up until 2020 when he had a year where he was almost like an MVP, but we still losing. I'm like, just get rid of this dude, man, because the injuries. I think he got injured that year. And I was just like, another injury, because that's what he was doing. He was just playing through injuries, and it was his choice, and it was obvious it was his choice. And back then, I didn't have a YouTube channel, so no one heard me say this, but Stafford was my guy in 2018. I remember fighting for Stafford. Like, I would talk to my brother, like, he has nothing, bro. He only got Galladay. Imagine me saying that. Like, he only has Galladay, which is crazy, right? 7 years later. So even Lions fans don't blame the quarterback for nothing. The quarterback can go out there, throw five interceptions. They don't blame him for nothing, because they were scoring by Joey. They were scoring by giving up on guys. They were never scoring by, whatever have you. But they have this archaic belief that a quarterback should be this. And I know because it comes off in their conversation where, oh man, you know, he has to throw the check down and he has to, well, this ball needs to be released right here at this. I see guys in their garage doing live streams talking about his feet need to be set. You never had these ideas. So to have these ideas at the hardest position of scout ever, has never been figured out. It's never been figured out by people more intelligent than you. And then you have this audacity to just like, golf's my guy. But you don't hold golf accountable. So when Hendon got drafted and they already had this adversarial approach, now I'm in year 3 of Hendon and I'm tired of fending off their archaic beliefs about the quarterback position because they act like they're Bill Walsh. They act like they're like, you know, like Martin Morningweg or Mariucci. Like they act like they don't realize that you're not Michael Martz. You're not the guy to do that. Like if you were the guy, if you were like a quarterback guru, like Bill Walsh. Remember, Bill Walsh would give his blessing on quarterbacks.
I remember.
And you know, they give his blessing and it was good and it was, you know, boom, boom, boom. And if he didn't get your blessing, you didn't get drafted. Lions fans do that with Hendon Hooker. You know, I remember there was this one dude, Adam Baydoun. Adam Baydoun was like, we're not going to draft Hendon Hooker. I don't think he's an athlete. I think he's an athlete, but we're not going to draft. I'm like, he threw 3,800 yards. Well, he's just an athlete. And then you check this out. Fast forward to we get drafted. Well, we drafted Hendon Hooker. Adam, what do you want to do? And Adam Baydoun is a big star in, you know, Detroit or whatever. He's a star. He's just like a radio personality. Think of that. And he's like, well, I can't wait to see him run around on the field. I'm gonna say, look at that Hooker run. The disrespect that he was getting from Woolworth Sports, from Motor City, Maine. I'm tired of it, bro. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it because I know where it's coming from. It's coming from a place that I just don't want to touch because I have so many different types of subscribers and supporters, and I don't want to call nobody no fan, but I have people of different walks of life. I have a 65-year-old woman in Lisa De Lorenzo who I talk to like every month just to see how she and her spouse are doing, and she's a moderator for me. And I also have a young guy Rico. Shout out to Rico, who's my age, who was in the Army. Like I have from Brent DeWitt, who was like, you know, in Fruitport, Michigan. To, you know what I'm saying? So I never bring up the race thing, but I already knew Hendon was gonna have a hard time here.
Right.
And I just want him to be released, go to Dallas, go do something, take somebody's job, and you know, just make it happen for yourself. That's where I'm at.
I got you. Well, okay. So the good news, right? Because the good news is that, as I said, you guys are now at the like crown molding part of the building, right? You're no longer laying the foundation. You're no longer, you know, trying to put up like load bearing walls. All that stuff's done, right? You're at the, like I said, crown molding, finishing pieces, updating the kitchen, you know, fixing the wiring. You're at that. Yeah. Well, Otto Graham could move. I mean, you can go back. How far back do you want to go? Right? A lot of those guys were dual sport or even two-way players. Trent Tarkenton salted away a game, you know, got a big win for his team with an interception. He picked off. What was he picked off? Can't remember. But he salted away a game for Tennessee in the Tennessee game. He went up, jumped off, got an interception. He played defensive back. A lot of these guys were great two-way athletes. Yeah. Quarterback is the best athlete on the field in many times in college.
Yeah.
Unitas was a pretty darn good safety. Like these guys ran single wing in high school, and many of them even in college. Billy Kilmer was the last single wing guy to get drafted. And think of how late that was. How late it was that they ran single wing at UCLA. But don't want to get too stuck in football history. But
you said we're at the crown molding.
Right, you're at the crown molding section. You're now putting in those finishing pieces on what could be a Super Bowl team. So offensive line, as you said, quality depth, and maybe one more starter. Maybe you want to upgrade one starter, but you're looking at getting quality depth on your line. You obviously the pass rush. Since I've started talking, I'm looking at all the stuff, and people are basically, skywriting, get a pass rusher in the first over the city. I see now that's the big drum beat. Like everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, I wanted to do a skit where I'm like Brad Holmes, and I'm like in a church, and I'm saying sometimes you just need a pass rusher, but sometimes I realize like who watches my channel, I'm like I can't make the wrong people laugh. I'm like Dave Chappelle. I can't make the wrong. I don't know if you laughing at me.
You gotta be careful how you do it. Yeah,
yeah.
Thread the needle. You have to thread the needle, my friend.
Yeah. Because I think the pass rusher thing, like if we get 2 defensive linemen, we're pretty heavy at defensive line right now. We got like 9 guys. Nine guys.
Yeah, Broski, they were running essentially the same offense that Baylor and a lot. I mean, air raid is actually very popular, not just in college. There's NFL teams who run air raid elements. I'll put it that way. A lot of air raid elements. The air raid is essentially West Coast offense stretched. You get rid of the fullback, you add another wide receiver, and you stretch. You put everybody farther out, right? You're trying to force the defense to declare everything pre-snap, right? Air raid, spread them and shred them, whatever term you want to use, is predicated on getting people who don't want to be in space, right? You find the weak link. Who's the guy that doesn't want to be in space, and you pick on that dude, right?
Yeah.
That's to simplify it to the lowest common denominator. Tennessee's offense isn't that different from a lot of other offenses that guys have had success running in the NFL. So when they say gimmick, it's basically the Art Briles, Kendall Briles wing of the air raid, right? And something similar is run at Ole Miss. Something. A lot of teams run something similar to it. It's not that different. Like people say gimmick, well then they're all gimmick. You know what I mean? Like they're like I think we're trying to slice the cheese too thinly.
And that's what I've said about the West Coast offense, because what the West Coast offense does is splits the field in half. Most times you're getting play action pass. Most times you're getting a flood route, a flood concept to the outside. You're gonna have a 9 route with a 7 behind it. Like you're gonna have all these like concepts that flood everything this way, or hit you in the middle of the field. Wouldn't that be a gimmick for Sam Darnold, who puts up 4,000 yards? Wouldn't that be a gimmick for Purdy, who puts up 3,800 yards? These guys aren't talented guys. Like these guys are not super thinkers either.
Right, Broski. The big difference is the play calling system. That's the most simplistic part of it, right? You look up on the card and there's a pizza, and there's the head of Scott Van Pelt, and there's a drag car, whatever. So that's the simplest part of it, right? They give you, as the offensive line and as the quarterback and as the wide receivers and running backs, they give everyone the play at the same time. And you just have to memorize what that card means. And there's a fake one and there's a real one, whatever. They put up, 3 different guys are putting them up. So that's the part that's simplified, right? The actual passing concepts are not that they don't have all the passing concepts you're going to run to an NFL offense, but all the concepts they have are in NFL offenses, right? Yeah. So it's not like they are. When people say gimmick, like I want you to define what you mean by gimmick, right? Because it's just a very spread offense, and so their version of air raid, right, but that's true of a lot of teams. Like that, it's not just true of Tennessee. Baylor, like I said, Ole Miss, like it's hard to think of a team that runs any of the teams that run air raid, right? And a lot of teams do. Oklahoma runs a variant. USC runs a variant. Like there's a lot of teams running a variant, and USC has a bunch of successful wide receivers. So your argument doesn't really hold water that it's Tennessee that's the problem, right? Or the offense even. Now they run a spready-er version of it. They split out even wider, right? They get almost all the way out to the boundary, right? Yeah. So they're forcing the defense, like I said, you can't disguise. They take disguise off the table. Yeah. When you spread a team out that much, you can't get from where you're trying to hide to where you need to be to cover in coverage, right? There's too much room. There's too much space to cover, right? I
think everybody wants to just, if you're not They still think like I used to hear this stuff in like 2005. Like, if you're not running 12 personnel, if you're not consistently under center, it's nonsense. Aaron Rodgers got the start after, obviously, what's his name went to the Favre went to the Jets, and he was 90% in shotgun. Okay.
Yeah.
And in 2008, I
Tom
think they
Brady
went
was 90% shotgun one year.
exactly. Like, I just like, they want you to be under center and all this other nonsense. And then guess what? You get to the game. It's a shotgun offense, 90%, and it's Bill Belichick running 90% shotgun, and guys are looking at the pocket, and guys are just looking around, and we're calling plays. Like, the pro style element is gone to me. Like, what's the pro style element now? Because you have Patrick Mahomes, you have all these other guys. Like, everything's a gimmick.
Another air raid team, Texas Tech, right? So all the things that you're saying about what Tennessee ran in offense, how different is Tennessee's offense from Texas Tech's offense?
And
how different is that offense from Cliff Kingsbury ran at Texas Tech? It's not very different. Those are very similar offenses.
Where are those pro style guys now? Where's Chad Henne, bro? Where's Chad Henne? Where's all these pro style guys?
He retired after the last time Kansas City won the Super Bowl, right? He's doing, whatever he wants to do now. But
where's all these guys that were under center in 2015 that were, changing the game, from changing the mental game? And man. Like, I look at that. I look at around the league. Jaden Daniels has opened up AI to football.
Right. Well, here's what I'm going to say.
You can go ahead.
If guys were going to be more successful because they ran an offense with more quote unquote pro style elements, then Iowa would be just throwing quarterbacks into successful spots.
Ricky Stanzi, first round, first pick.
Right. Tate, but all those guys that came out of Iowa would be super successful. We'd be watching C.G. Beathard carving up the league. The fact is that a quarterback's ability to do well, while it helps if his college offense had a little more complexity, it's been proven by Mahomes and several others that you can. And somebody mentioned Tampa Bay, right? Who's their quarterback? Baker Reagan Mayfield, who ran what? An air raid offense. Where did Kyler Murray come from? I don't think people think through some of the arguments they make. Teams that run these very spread, simplified offenses have put successful quarterbacks in the NFL. So the argument that that's what Hendon Hooker's problem was doesn't hold water. Go
ahead. You about to finish on Hendon Hooker?
I'm just gonna land the plane here. While he may not succeed, you can't blame the fact that he ran a hurry up shotgun spread offense, because loads of people are running hurry up shotgun spread offenses in college football.
When you evaluate a quarterback, do you look at prototypes? Do you have guardrails? Do you have like a method of mechanics or anything that you go for?
I'm glad you brought up prototypes and guardrails and things like that. I believe strongly in production, right? When it comes to quarterbacks, particularly. And I don't mean just numbers, like counting stats, right? Like touchdowns, I care very little about, except in their ratio to interceptions, right? If you have a really good touchdown interception ratio, that definitely helps me. But 25 passing touchdowns in a slower offense is just as good as 50 in a hurry up offense, right? I don't care so much about the actual counting stats. I do care about your percentage of the offensive burden. Once again, back to Mahomes. Mahomes was the whole shooting match at Texas Tech. If they lost the game, he might not have lost it, but they put it in his hands, right? They said, hey, whatever we're going to do in this game, it's on you. Come on, Patty, get us through this, right? Josh Allen, to a certain extent, at Wyoming. Even a guy like, though people don't think about him this way, but a guy like Carr, right? Both the Carr brothers at Fresno State, one of them ran a true pro style offense, and they actually, both of them, at least for a little while, and then Derek Carr comes in initially, they're still running that Pat Hill pro style offense based on the old Earhart system, and then they switch when DeRuiter takes over the job, and they switch to a high tempo spread offense his last couple of years at Fresno. But once again, if it was supposed to succeed, David Carr should have been a wildly successful. He ran one of the most complex offenses in all of college football. Matt Leinart ran one of the most complex offenses in all of college football. Norm
That's wild.
Chow is on the staff when he's there. So is Steve Sarkisian's on the staff while he's there. And to land it, we have Lane Kiffin on the staff at USC while he's there. They run one of the most complex offenses in college football. While it helps, I certainly would like a guy to be familiar with spitting out complex play calls and stuff like that. It's not the deciding factor. Lots of guys came from super complex offenses and didn't do anything when they got to the NFL. Rick Myra ran a very complex offense at Notre Dame, right? I mean, like that's not the big determining factor.
Right. It's
the big determining factor.
And that's why I stopped arguing with Lions fans. I stopped talking to them for real. Like I have scouts on my channel that can break down quarterback from mechanics to from top down, feet up. You know how a guy's feet is.
So I'm glad you asked. Right, that was Bill Walsh's big thing. He would watch a guy's feet, like literally just stare at his feet before he wouldn't look at the other part of his body, any other part of his body first. He would do feet first. He was a feet first guy when it came to quarterback, and then he would work his way up. Right, but he always started with feet. And once again, right, because 3-5-7, all the stuff you have to do in the original version of West Coast offense, right? Because they didn't believe in shotgun really, and they didn't believe really that much in even 3 wide receiver. People forget that he was a fullback guy, right? Cecil Cooper and Bill Ring, and while the running backs were, Roger Craig was a really good player, and Ricky Waters was actually an absolute monster. But the early running backs for the Bill Walsh West Coast offense were just kind of there, right? They were famous Amos Lawrence was their kind of scat back guy. And then Bill Ring was the, pick up blitzes and get tough yards guy. And you had Cecil Cooper, who was a big guy who could catch the ball, right? That was the original 3-back rotation when Walsh first builds the machine there with the 49ers. And he would cycle other guys in and out. And then they finally got some sort of star types later when they got guys like Roger Craig and they got guys like Ricky Waters. But the first guys were just guys. They just needed to know their assignments. And even, pre-Jerry Rice, the receivers were just guys who got the job done. Freddie Solomon was a really good football player, but, not a Hall of Famer. So the guys they originally had, it was tight end friendly, right? The tight ends always got a lot of work, right? All the tight ends got good work in that offense. But it was built around the ball coming out. As you said, ball comes out perfectly timed, right? 3-5-7, your back foot hits, ball's out. Everyone runs their depths at the exact right depth, and the ball is there. When you and the ball is there, right? You don't have to look for it. You have to think about it. The ball's there already. You can do it in the dark.
Would you say that's the original? Would you say that's the original timing offense? Like, because
it's a 7-step drop offense, but it perfected it. They perfected it. They didn't originate it. Hell, people always talk about the old button hook, right? Which people drop the button part, but there was the person who perfected the button hook, right? Which we now call the hook. Was a guy named Raymond Berry, right? A guy came out of SMU, was a good player in college, but terrible physically, right? He was such a physical wreck that the draft, and I'm not talking about the NFL draft, I'm talking about the Army, had a 4F rating on him. He had severe scoliosis. One leg was an inch and a quarter shorter than the other.
Yeah.
He had terrible vision. He was almost legally blind without glasses or contact lenses.
This guy played in the NFL?
He didn't just play in the NFL, he's in the Hall of Fame. So Raymond Berry perfected the button hook, right? Which we now just call the hook. We dropped the button part of it. And he and Unitas would run it after practice and take their cars to the side of the practice field and turn the lights on because they didn't have the access to turn the lights on the practice field. So they would just use their car batteries up and keep running it. So they could do it in the dark, right? When I say they could do it in the dark, they could. Raymond Berry would run this pattern. Everyone knows he's going to beat them on this button hook. They still couldn't stop it, right? And he's a terrible athlete, but he's deceptive, right? Despite the fact that he's got this weird gait because of one leg being long, the other, he's got this back brace on because he's got severe scoliosis. I'm not kidding, look it up because he's got such severe scoliosis, but he wouldn't let any of that stop him. And he was a coach, right? He later took, in fact, the first time the first time after the merger that the Patriots were any good, he was their head coach. Raymond Berry, look him up. SMU, Hall of Famer, college and pro football Hall of Famer, Raymond Berry.
Yeah.
But he was a great wide receiver, despite the fact he was a terrible physical specimen. It
When
it
teams,
hurt. It
okay,
hurt to watch him. It hurt to watch him play football, in fact, but it probably hurt him to play. But he was always exactly where Johnny Unitas needed him to be, and the ball was always right there. And he caught, and you could hit him with, you could literally hit him with a sledgehammer. He wouldn't drop the ball.
I
So
got okay.
that
I
was
got
one
a
of the first
question.
great timing offenses. Was actually that Baltimore Colts offense of the 50s. But yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, that's good. The Baltimore Colts was the first timing offense of the 50s, perfected the button hit. I'm listening to you. I'm just like, I'm really trying to only get to one thing that I want to get to.
Okay.
When
Let's get there.
yeah. So when we break down a player,
Quarterbacks or players in general.
yeah. No, we can break down player, quarterback, whatever.
Okay.
What are your
So
particular guardrails and
I'm glad.
prototypes?
I'm glad you asked. So I'm one of those people that I'm willing to quote unquote break the rules for players, right? If I know it, we mentioned Malcolm Rodriguez, right? That was a guy that I had a much higher grade on than most people. And it was a bunch of things. So when a guy is a certain percentage of a team's success and he's playing against a decent level of competition, unless he literally is a magician, right? Casting spells out there, he must have figured something out about how to be a successful football player, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go back to Russell Wilson, right? All the controversies about Russell Wilson. Well, Russell Wilson is 5'10" and 5'8", right? That will be one of those things that people will never forget. We all know where we were when they announced Russell Wilson's actual height, right? All the discussion of it, all the ringing of the hands, and how tall will Russ be? Well, Russell Wilson was a killer in high school, right? At Richmond Collegiate, at whatever height he was then. He's really good at NC State. And you'll hear people somehow not remember what happened. They'll say, he lost his job to Glennon. Oh, hell no.
He moved. No. He transferred.
Well, he transferred after he was told he wasn't going to be the starting quarterback. But it wasn't because Glennon beat him out. It's because he and Tom O'Brien, right? Marine Corps officer Tom O'Brien from the Naval Academy was a my way or the highway kind of guy. And he had Russ consistently miss spring ball because, well, he has a contract with the Colorado Rockies. And unless he wants to give back hundreds of thousands of dollars, he's got to play for them in the spring, right? He's playing in their minor league chain. And O'Brien puts down an ultimatum. You've got to play spring ball this year or you're not our starting quarterback. And Russell's like, do you know how binding contracts work? Like he kind of, it's like, respectfully, like, you know how Russ is. Russ isn't going to go in and scream or yell, but he says, like, respectfully, I given my word to this team and signed a contract. So he says, well, I'm making Glennon the starter. And then Russ decides to transfer out.
Yes, sir.
And luckily Russ, this is before the portal, Russ had redshirted his freshman year and was academically going to graduate anyway. So he graduates and takes a grad transfer to Wisconsin. And people act like he became something at Wisconsin.
Right.
Wisconsin was one of the most boring vanilla offenses the planet's ever seen. He made that happen. Proof is, look at what Wisconsin did at offense before and after Russ. Are they setting the world on fire?
When Russ got started at Wisconsin, I thought it was because I was young back then. I thought it was because he had to prove he can run a pro style offense because of what happened to Chris Leak. Remember what happened to Chris Leak?
I remember and his brother, right? They eventually moved his older brother away from the quarterback position after he left Wake Forest. I remember
we got a new member to the channel. Shout out to Rico, Doug. Shout out to Rico.
There we go.
He said we breaking barriers with this one. He was in the comment section. He said we breaking barriers with this one. We was talking about Mel Blunt. We was talking about this.
I'm touching on it. We're touching on it all. Football history being taught a little bit. Black football history particularly. But I know history, period. So yeah, he did it because guy took his job away in Wisconsin. Tell me for this board was a quarterback away. And coincidentally, their first Rose Bowl, since the peak Barry Alvarez years happened once he gets there, since the Brooke Bollinger days happens while he's there.
This shit gonna make me cry, man. This is gonna make me cry. Because all I ever wanted to do was scout. That's all I ever wanted to do but you know, either I play, I coach, or I scout. That's it. But
Yeah.
you know that 2007 that 2009 group for Seattle that taught me really how to scout with the Legion of Boom, the Brandon Browners, the
Yep.
the Richard Shermans, and what to look for, and then watching
Van
Baldy's.
Chancellor and KJ Wright comes along, and
Yeah.
they had a really nice. So they really liked different body types, right? They had a lot of different kinds of bodies, and guys were good for them that would not have been good for everybody, right? So even when I think about, so speaking about the curse of Texas A&M, right? So in the interior and sometimes exterior of their defensive line, they had guys who were, you talk about misfit toys, but sometimes misfit toys can fit, right? So do you remember what that defensive line consisted of with the Legion of Boom that they built? They had a really interesting bunch of guys, right? I mean, really interesting, like characters also, in addition to what they did physically. They had guys like Red Bryant, who was like, right? Who is it from? I'm thinking from Drax. Is that his name from Guardians of the Galaxy? That's who Red Bryant was like. This enormous, like power, angry, like giant person, right? And other teams when he was coming out didn't know what he was, right? Is he a tackle? Is he an end? All that usual stuff about.
They would do that, back in the day. His body type suggests he's too big to play corner. Oh my God. Yeah, they would say all types of crazy stuff.
And so John Schneider is a guy, you talked about guardrails, right? They have specific guardrails at certain positions, but not every position. So the Seattle corner thing, right, starts because they had really, you know what I'm talking about. And so he's in there, and then they're mixed in there with the unicorn, right? They've got some interesting dudes on that group, in that group. But yeah, so they say we want this arm length. They don't care that much about speed, right? They accept that safety. Their safeties have to be able to run because they're over
cover
the top,
3. Yeah.
cleaning everything up. Their corners, 4, 5, 6 is on the best day of his life is what Richard Sherman ran. But he was, 6'2.5" and strong, had long arms, but still knocked out 16 reps on the bench. And of course, had been a wide receiver until the spring of his junior year. So the ball skills are not an issue, right? The guy and he was a good wide receiver. He wasn't a trash wide receiver.
Right.
He was a good wide receiver at Stanford. They just needed him more at corner. They had wide receivers. Stanford had wide receivers. They didn't have any corners. So he jumps over, and he's an all-conference guy almost right out of the box. Like, I love when a guy immediately succeeds. Things I look for. If a guy changes systems or changes positions, and there's no sort of feeling it out period, he's just boom, good. It's like, okay, this guy is going to get it done. He's going to find a way to get it done.
Yeah. And that's what you was talking about with Russ just a minute ago.
It worked with Justin Herbert, right? They ran this very quote unquote pro style offense at first, and then they went to, when they fired what's his name and brought in he's now at Miami, Mario Cristobal. He jumped the previous offense, and they went shotgun spread, and he produced in both offenses, right? So when a guy plays in multiple offenses that are radically different or radically different systems on defense or whatever, is good in both of them, right? And it's not even ugly while he's figuring it out. Like, he looks good immediately. It's like, okay, that guy's going to play. He's going to be okay. He might not be a star, but he's definitely going to play in the NFL. Like, no doubt in my mind when I see a guy do that.
Exactly.
I do like athletic ability, right? If a guy now guys are starting to just skip the agilities, which I don't like, but I look a lot at most positions at 3-cone. So things that matter to me a lot are vertical, 3-cone, short shuttle, right? But guys are starting to skip the agilities. And I think they figured out that some teams don't know how important agilities are, and they won't realize, okay, I'm not taking a chance on a guy if I don't know if you can change direction. I'm sorry. I got to see you change direction. You got to move, right? Fast in a straight line is awesome, but can you change direction?
I forgot about this because we were talking about
a Mike Green question. Okay, what do you want to know about Mike Green?
He had it up here. And then someone said Landon Jackson versus, I'm like, what?
Landon Jackson is a big, giant power guy. I could see them falling in love with him. Also, he's got a lot lion-esque qualities. So I could see him being a guy you might be considered. But are you asking if Mike Green's a good fit for what you guys do?
Yeah, he's probably asking that because I can't find his comment. I seen it one time.
I'm gonna guess then.
Oh, Mike Green, and also, do you know any more info about the sexual assault rumors? He got a sexual
they're
assault.
not rumors. They're not
That's
rumors.
a fact.
He talked about them. To his credit, full accountability. There were 2 incidents, and that's why he ended up transferring. Right? He talked about them both, and they're not rumors. There's no rumor to it. He talked about them. He himself opened up his mouth and spoke. Now, I'm a little surprised he was as forthcoming as he was. Normally, agents or whatever tell you, I'm discussing this with teams. I don't want to get into it, but he just flat out talked about it. So not a rumor. There's not a rumor about it. He stood up at the podium at the combine and addressed them directly. Now, there are teams that are going to like that. Not like, let me rephrase. That will appreciate that he was very open and forthright and talked about it directly talked about it. There are teams that will see that as he's a stand-up guy. Well, I don't know, stand-up too long a word, but they'll see that he doesn't dodge. He's not trying to avoid talking about it. There are teams that will be at least impressed by that. He says, he said he was a different person. He's been in counseling. He talked about his process, but it is not a rumor. There is no rumor there. He is very much owned up to those 2 incidents.
I can see it. I can hear it now. Malika Andrews like, why isn't anybody drafting? Well, it seems to be a sexual assault. Like, oh no, I hear Malika Andrews right now. Yeah, he's off the Lions draft board. Even if he's accountable. Oh yeah,
and some other teams as well. There's some teams that will take him all the way off their board. Some team will get
Eagles
him
gonna rock with him.
Right. There's some teams gonna get him with a character scratch and dent discount later.
Yeah,
he did take accountability. Yes, I'll give him that. I give him credit for taking total accountability. He didn't try to blame anybody else. He said, yes, these 2 incidents happened. He said, what happened and how it happened, and that he is very sorry. He's gone through counseling to deal with, the problems that he's had and all that good stuff.
Right, because I think we talked today, and you was talking about the quadrants of players, the physical, the mental, the character, the scheme, and all these quadrants have to be checked off. Like we have to check off: are you a scheme fit? What's the physical look like? What's your medicals look like? The character with the Lions is like the first quadrant. It's the major quadrant, and this is a quadrant for me, like a crime. Like I'm talking about, crime, the R word, and sexual assault and crimes.
Crime. Yes.
No.
Real crime. Yes.
This
is not like James Pierce, where it's like being a weirdo and parking wherever you feel like parking and stuff like that. No, this is not that. This is the real deal. This is real deal, serious stuff. And he's getting help and whatever, but he's completely owns up to it. You've got to analyze that for however you take it as a franchise. But he's going to go later. If people have him going in the middle of the first round, they need to readjust. That is not going to happen. He's going to go later, and he's going to go to a team that does have certain things in place, right? You've got to have a strong locker room. You've got to have basically guys who immediately command respect, right? Where when they tell him, hey, come to church with me or whatever it is, he just does it, right? Or whatever it is they're doing with him. You have to have a locker room that's built to handle his situation.
Yeah, Atlanta or maybe Detroit. Detroit has the locker room built to handle it, but they look at like bad character as like a black plague. You let one in is bad, and they look at it so bad, like, because if you have a culture, this is my criticism of Brad Holmes and them. They talk about this culture. If your culture is so strong, if your culture is so strong, you can have a Jalen, what's his name? Just won a Super Bowl. You can have a Jalen Carter. You can have you have a Jalen Carter. You can have a Mike Green, and you can come in and you can bring these guys along. But it's teams like Baltimore, it's teams like where they have a culture. They have dinner on Sundays and or Saturday nights in the NFL, and it's Baltimore Ravens Saturday, or we've just been good for 3 years, and people just hyperspace that we have this elite culture, and they just forgot about 50 57 years of football. 58 years of football. They forgot about that. Oh, wait. We got another one. Zabel or Jackson?
Oh.
Which Jackson?
I'm assuming, and I probably shouldn't assume, but I'm assuming if you're talking about guards or centers, you mean Jackson Slater. So I think it's the first name of one guy and the last name of the other. I'm guessing. So Gray Zabel and Jackson Slater, I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
Zabel is the guy who has more high leverage, as I like to use it, snaps against good competition. So I like them both. I might draft them both, right? If I'm not in love with my center and guard situation, I might draft them both, right? Because one of those guys is going to kick over to center. One guy's going to be probably either my left or right guard. And unless the people I have are amazing, or even if they are amazing, but they're getting towards the end of their amazingness, I might still draft them both. These are really good football players. Now, Jackson's been a guard pretty much most of his entire career. Zabel has been a tackle most of his football career, both in high school and in college. Recently has been playing guard and has looked really good doing it. Okay. So you get in an emergency could he play tackle thing with Zabel, probably not so much to Jackson Slater, if that's the Jackson he means.
Yeah, because I like Zabel. I think I honestly, man, look, man, I'm telling you this. You're gonna be very upset with me.
Or do you mean Donovan Jackson? I guess we'll find out if I'm talking about the right person.
When the evaluation period for quarterbacks and the evaluation period for everybody else, it seems totally different. Because with quarterbacks, we microanalyze everything, and with other guys, we're looking for something to tear them down.
Yep. Correct.
If he had the wherewithal to be like, it happened twice. Okay, I'm not gonna advocate sexual assault. You're just off the draft board. I'm not gonna. If you come to Jesus moment, it's all good. But bruh, it's over with. It's over with for me. Like the Bengals could do that because they've done that in the past. Oh snap!
Back. Sorry about that.
All right. All right. I got you. I talked to him. So the Bengals. Oh yeah, you good. So the Bengals could do that, right? They could do that, and it was good. But the Lions, no. The Lions, matter of fact, the Lions actually make me sick right now because the Lions is actually, we have 73 players on the roster. We have Avonte Maddox. We have the secondary that's like more zone. They telling you zone without telling you zone. We have a nose tackle in Roy Lopez, so that tells me we're going 3-4. We're going multiple this year. I'm gonna put the video out. And the 3-4, honestly, is just an alignment. It's really designed for personnel. It's not even an alignment because if you go under or over in a 4-3, or if you run a 4-2-5, and instead of that, that 4-person being a defensive end, you can make them a linebacker. Now you're in a 3-4. So I feel like they're doing too much stuff, man. They're doing way too much, and they're not getting real players in here to counteract doing. Kelvin loves the 3-4. Yeah, I know he does because he was talking about Matt Patricia. He came under Chuck Pagano. He talked about running more zone. I see the corners they brought in. All these corners that they brought in understand zone concepts. They understand dropping, where their spots are. Everybody's like eight years in the game, have 4 years of starting snaps, understand they've had many reps. And it just tells me like, and I'll check this out. Y'all ain't even gonna like this. Y'all ain't even gonna like this. Let me land my plane. Let me land my plane right here. Hold on. They're not gonna like this. So at the owners meeting, I checked out everybody's owners meeting. I checked out everybody. I checked out Aaron Glenn. I checked out Chicago. I checked out Mr. Chicago. And Aaron Glenn, again, is a person I see as a person. Because I'm just normal around my people. So,
and it feels like he was just playing just yesterday to me.
I know for you, for sure. I remember playing Texas on Madden 2001.
Right. You like feisty, undersized corners. Aaron Glenn's your guy.
Yeah, this is the problem. Aaron Glenn brought in Brandon Stevens, and he paid him $36 million. And I was telling the Jets people in the chat, he paid him 3 years, $36 million. And I told the Jets people in the chat, good luck with that. He's awful. And Aaron Glenn is another reason why we bring corners in that are not good. Like he think he can fix them. And I'm looking at him like he crazy because Brandon Stevens is on tape that you cannot fix this dude. 107 passer rating. Doesn't track the ball until the last second when the guy's hand goes up. He's like, the stuff has been scouted and seen. Like, even I seen it in a day of looking at other free agents. I seen his issues. Like, there was so much film on him, bro. I could type his name in and videos would just pop up.
Right.
And I'm like, man, Aaron Glenn did have some terrible corners. And guess what? We revamped our corner room again after he leaves. We revamp our corners. We got more zone corners. Rock Ya-Sin. Well, they say Brad Holmes today said Rock Ya-Sin plays man coverage. I don't see it. Avonte Maddox man coverage, and we like it as safety.
Once again, man-ish. You can play man-ish coverage. You can play some matchup zone stuff with those guys. You can bump and bail with those guys. I don't like them in 1976, Raiders man, where you just follow a guy everywhere he goes. That probably won't work out. You can play some man-ish principle.
You talk about match. You talk about like cover 3 match, cover 3 Mabel.
You can do that kind of stuff. You can do stuff where you even have guys playing where it's man in certain parts of the field, even right, and zone every place else. You can even do that kind of stuff. Right. But if
Brandon Stevens, though,
right? Well, okay, Brandon Stevens. Brandon Stevens to me is a guy who's your third safety when you go a big
Jesus
nickel,
Christ.
right?
Jesus.
I'm just saying, I think that's his best fit. Remember, this guy was recruited as a running back, right? He goes to UCLA originally as a running back. Then they move him over late in his career to play defensive back. He plays corner and some safety. So the guys played 3 different positions in college. That's part of the problem, right? He's still settling in. Corner is a really hard position to play. First of all, I mean, like, I don't think that's news to anybody. That's really hard to play corner. It's a very difficult position to play.
But that's why I get guys with elite traits first. That's why I get my Tariq Woolens. That's why I gravitate to even Jacob Parrish in the slot. I can gravitate to certain Oh, you like Jacob Parrish in the slot? I don't like him on the outside.
I like Ranshaw. And Ranshaw can probably do both. I like Quincy Riley. If you don't get Parrish, grab yourself a Quincy Riley, maybe a round or 2 later.
Yeah. Because I don't need you to learn a position and be terrible and not be a great athlete. How are you gonna learn a position, not be a great athlete?
Well, now in his defense, I wouldn't say he's not a great. It's just that if you saw him play running back, and I did, he ran away from people on a regular basis. Listen, he has a really good second gear. The issue is the processing, right? His processing took a while. Once again, he didn't play that much defense in college, right? He came to defense late. It's so hard to play corner in the NFL. Like, I wish that they could create a simulator that gave you an idea of what it was like to play corner in the NFL. People would walk away thinking, this is impossible. This is something people can't do. This is not something humans can do.
Right. Because, well, I know you had comments about Terrion, though. I mean, Avonte Maddox and Rock Ya-Sin, all them bums.
So here's what we'll say about Avonte Maddox. Avonte Maddox was a guy drafted to play one position, ended up playing 3 positions as my lovely other half. Remember, as a rookie, he played 3 different positions for the Eagles, right? So that football temperament thing, that mental toughness thing, he had to. So he was can he be good as a? It depends on what you think a number 1 corner is, right? Because is a number 1 corner one of the top 4 or 5 corners in the NFL? And that, how do you define it? Is he just your best corner, right? Is that what you mean? The best corner on your team?
Shit.
I mean, I'm trying to ask. Like, how do you define the term? If
he just number 1 best corner on your roster.
Well, that's what I'm trying to make sure I understand. If by number 1 corner you mean one of the top 8 or so corners in the NFL, I don't think that's in the cards. If you mean the best corner on your team, yes, he could definitely turn out to be the best corner on your team. What I would also say is you need to tailor what you're going to do to his strengths, right? If you want him to be your best corner, he is not naturally suited to being left alone for long times with top receivers. That is not good for him or you. You need to either go with a system where he's responsible for a certain area even in zone, there's lots of different ways to be a zone corner, even, right? It can be just all top down where you're always just playing downhill. Or you can be a guy that's playing match, right? We talked about where you are mirroring and matching. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings here. He is now he could turn out to be your nickel also. I mean, like if you bring in the right corners, he could kick into nickel. He could play a little in that big nickel, particularly because like he's a good tackler. Things I like about him. He's a good tackler, tough as nails. He is. He's a good tackler. He's tough as nails. He's got all that.
Things I like about him. Oh, snap. Okay. Let me look for something. Praise the Lord. How you doing?
Well, Mama said if you can't say anything nice. So he is a guy who wants to be good also. Like he's going to work. He's going to improve. But when you say number one corner, if you're talking about, he's never going to be Darryl Stingley. He's never going to be Christian Gonzalez. Like he's not going to be one of those guys. Like those are different kinds of players from him. Like that's not even a fair comparison. I'm just trying to be truthful. Like those guys are just different. He can't do what they can do.
RW.
Darryl Stingley. If you told Darryl Stingley, I need you to play wide receiver, he could go out and do it and look pretty decent doing it. Like he's that kind of player. You could not do that with Terrion Arnold. You couldn't say, hey, we lost a guy at receiver. Can you play a little receiver for us? Reverse Troy Brown it for us, whatever. He couldn't do that. That's not the kind of athlete he is. He is good at the things he's good at, and he'll get better at some of the things he's bad at. But elite is hard, right? It's not. If elite were easy, everybody would do it. Only a few people are going to be elite, right? That's what elite means. Right. Elite means only a few people can do it.
And there's so many corners that are elite, got elite traits. There's so many corners like Derek Stingley was like we looked at, Derek Stingley was picked 4th in the draft. Oh, Sauce Gardner's picked 4th. You know, in Detroit, you know what they said during the Witherspoon comment when the Witherspoon sweepstakes, the sweepstakes for Witherspoon, you don't pick a corner at 6. That's what they said. Even though that's how lost the people is, man. That's how lost. And it's not. My people don't tell me no stupid stuff like that. I'll be watching something like Woolworth Sports, or I'll be watching whatever I'm watching, and they say, yeah, a corner at 6. And check this out. He was on their board as one of the top corners. He was on their board. They loved Witherspoon. And if he was there, they would have picked him.
Right, because he's first of all, he has all that football temperament stuff they love. First of all of Lovie Smith's guys had that football temperament stuff in spades, right? He had Nate Hobbs, right? He had Witherspoon. He had your boy Kirby Joseph. Like, look at what Lovie Smith did at Illinois. His DB room was right. All those guys, straight dogs, right? Terrific players. He had a hell of a room there. So that's Lovey in action.
Yeah, I wanted Witherspoon. I wanted Witherspoon.
Right to him, and you were right.
Oh yeah, I was. Lovey Smith really did work. He did work. He had Kirby Joseph. You think I'm going to pass on the dude who played with Kirby Joseph and the dude can play? You see how Seattle's using him? They're using him like Brian Branch. They're putting him all over the field.
Yep,
he's the best. He's their best DB, honestly, because Tariq Woolen might be their most talented, but he's still learning the position. He's still like
another guy that made the switch late to defense, right? So, if you had a guy like Witherspoon on your team now, you would be basically done with your secondary entirely, and now you can concentrate on other things, right? Because Witherspoon can do whatever. He can do whatever. He can play zone or man at a super high level, right? He can play. If you told him to be a deep safety, he'd go do it and be good at it. If you just told him to do that one day. Now, I don't think that's the best use of him, but he'd do it and be good.
So you don't believe in Brian Branch?
I do believe in Brian Branch. I'm a Brian Branch guy because that's kind of how I was as a player. Only he's more talented than me, but I mean, I was a guy who sort of had to overcome certain things. Is he a freak athlete? No. He's a good enough athlete, which I was not. but he's really smart and he's really tough. And you can ask him to go down there and even get down in the box and get dirty, and he does it, right? And doesn't blink. He doesn't mind it. So I am a Brian Branch guy. I love. He's not as good as Witherspoon, though. I mean,
he's not guarding Justin Jefferson on an island.
That's what I'm saying. Like, let's be serious. I mean, he's not
doing that. He's a terrific slot and zone safety corner, nickel star.
Yeah, he can do all those things well. But he can't suddenly jump on what you said, right? He can't suddenly jump on Justin Jefferson without you basically needing a lot of antacids. I mean, like that's not something you'd ask him to do. Like he wouldn't even ask him to do it.
Right. We wouldn't even look his way. Like that's another thing. Terrion is asked to guard Justin Jefferson and Adunze. And I'm supposed to do a film study on him. Like he turned to elite. I'm gonna get the algorithm on my side. I'm gonna do a film study. Like he got better with the lack of hands, and his separation rate was the highest in the league. Like he had, or the lowest in the league. He had the lowest separation of any corner in the NFL out of 66 or 68 guys that played. Like, you know, he's there. He's not getting blown away.
Right. I want to make it clear that I'm not saying he's a bad football player. He's a really good football player. I want to make it very clear. I'm saying he's a really good football player. And if you play the right system, he will continue to improve. Right. What I'm saying is that you need to be careful, though, about what you're going to do. If this is your number one corner, then you have to run the right scheme for this guy to be a number one corner.
No. He's a number two. He's always going to be a number two. He should be in the slot playing zone. He should be in a zone system. And he played 469 snaps in zone in Alabama. So I don't know where this stuff came from. No, I think it was 269 snaps in Alabama, and he had the other 200 in man. I don't know where this he's a cover one corner. I don't know where that came from. But I know in Detroit, if you say the right things, they love you. Roy Lopez, Terrion Arnold, Malcolm Rodriguez. It's irresistible when you say the right things. Now, if you don't talk at all, Hendon Hooker, other people, they don't like you at all, like Swift.
Right.
It is what it is. If you don't talk, oh man, can't play man all day. Yeah, we can't play man all day, Rico. Unfortunately, we do, or we did. I don't think we do that again. I mean, I will tell you that, you know, from the top down, like, when we look at like scouting cornerbacks, has there ever been someone that you noticed that, you know, just can scout like a team? Like I would steal people. Like if I wanted to have a scout who knew linebackers, I would hire somebody from Pittsburgh. I would bring him in. I would offer him more money. He would have a lateral position, but I offer him more money. And I know they know linebackers over there and they know pass rushers over there. And then I go over there to Seattle land. Show me some corners. I need two guys.
That out. Yeah, they even have a good grasp on that. Yeah.
Right. I would bring people from different staffs. Like, Tampa Bay, you play a lot of zone. Like, what do you guys look for? Because Kansas City, like I showed you earlier today, like Kansas City cares about intelligent players. So I bring someone over. Exactly.
They have, all the guys who haven't been elite or close to it mentally have not worked out for their defense. Look at all the guys who didn't make it, and it's the same thing every single time. When a guy doesn't survive, and this is going to be the deciding year for a lot of those players, right? The younger players are going to have to step up, and it's a mental thing that they have to step up to. They physically have it. It's the mental stuff because they play a lot of combination coverages, and they ask their pass rushers to change up where they align because otherwise people just figure out how to trade Chris Jones away, right? So they move him around. And when they move him around, you can't just move him around, right? You have to move people around to move him around, right? It's not like he can just go over here and the other guy just like slides up behind him. No, you have to now, when Chris Jones kicks inside or kicks outside, you have to kick inside. So you have to know how to do that, right? For that to happen. So they have a lot of multiplicity, a lot of things happening in their defense.
Right.
And they make changes late. Really late in that.
Yeah, because I seen Andy Reid. He had an interview last year before he was playing the Lions, and I was doing some scouting on him. He's like, "Yeah, they were a little concerned about the install on offense. Install? You just won a Super Bowl. You're building another offense?
They
I'm like,
always do.
bro. I'm like,
Yes,
man, what
yes,
the
they
hell?
do.
Like,
They're constantly changing things. That's why people say, "Oh, I think people have caught on to the." No,
no, you just
because they're
caught
not
on
going
to
to the same.
this year. Next year's a
They're not
different
going to
year,
see the same team. They're
right?
going to be a different team when you see them next. So
They're
no,
gonna
you
be a
have
different team.
you're
Yeah.
going to have to completely figure it out again all over again.
And Lions
That's
fans, we
the
still talk
difference
about
between them. That's the difference between them and Shanahan. Shanahan's really, really smart, but he doesn't want to give up his what we call his pet cat. You know what I mean, right? He has certain things that he just loves, and he won't give them up. So he'll just say, "Well, if you think you figured it out, I'll make this variance. I'll run it from this personnel group. I'll run it from this alignment or this formation." Instead of saying, "I'm just going to do something different," he's going to make it look different and do the thing he wants to do. Andy Reid will junk his entire offense and just do a new one, right? And it's as crazy as it sounds. If he thinks that's what it takes, he'll just do it. Remember when Tiger Woods dominated golf for 3 years and then he announced he's going to change up his mechanics and change his swing, and people said, "Are you insane?" Right? You're the best. You're the best golfer in the world.
Yeah.
But he thought it would make his short game more predictable, more better,
Yeah.
more regular, like more.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
he was willing to sacrifice.
Did I drop some assault on Rodrigo? I hope I didn't. I'm just saying, like I knew who Rodrigo was. I love Rodrigo,
Okay,
but
now in defense of Mr. Rakestraw, he's going to be a player for you guys. But is he Cooper? No, he's not Cooper DeJean. I'm going to admit that he probably will never get to that level. But in his defense,
the level is crazy.
in his defense, he's going to improve, especially if you guys do what I think you're going to do with him. But that's still to be seen.
What do you think we're gonna do with him? What do you think in his
My
race?
assumption is that when you guys jump into packages where you have, like you walk Branch down almost into like a nickel linebacker situation, he's going to take over covering the slot. In that kind of setting, I think.
Okay.
Now once again,
Yeah, I think he's a slot corner too. That's crazy. You drafted 2 slot corners. Crazy. And this corner, matter of fact, wait. Do you think? Wait. He laughing.
No. I want to hear what you have to say though. Yeah.
Do you think Terrion is a matter of fact? Where would these corners rank in this draft? Where you have Jahdae Barron, and it's funny. I keep forgetting about Jahdae Barron because I looked stupid the other day because Jahdae Barron to me is everything. He's like Witherspoon. He could play safety. He could play anything. So I put him as his own specialty position. Like he could play corner, safety. He could play in phase, out phase. He perfect.
He can do it all. Right.
Yeah.
So he's the kind of right. He's got to make sure coordinators smart. Right. Guys like him. Like if you had a guy like Cooper, if you'd gotten a guy like Cooper and then you add Jahdae Barron, once again you're done. Like now your secondary's finished because you have a bunch of guys who can do everything, or almost everything. I like Brian Brandt, and he can do a lot of things, but there's things he can't do. And Terran Arnold can do things, but there's things he can't do. Not yet, at least. Now these are young players. I want to make it clear. I haven't. Rakestraw is going to his second year. Branch is still developing. Arnold's still developing. These are younger players. But you saw what Cooper DeJean did right out of the box as a rookie. So I understand it does make you think maybe we should have done that, right? When you see a guy just come out in a complex or Quignon in a very complex defense and then immediately goes out and does very, very well. Right.
Yeah. And I just seen a video of him like he was the smartest corner. Like, and it was crazy. Yeah, he went to Vic Fangio's system and outplayed Avonte Maddox and got this overhang cover 4 position, like this slot position. And then he was playing on the outside a little times, but he was playing like they y'all did this to yourselves. Like y'all had access. Like the Lions, I get a Lions a hard time because they're $1 billion organization. They got people that get paid just to do this. And I on yearly average, I find a Rodrigo and I have nothing. I probably make $2,000 every 2 weeks. I'm paying bills. I got a daughter. I ain't with the NFL. But guess what? Guess what? They got 16 guys who do this. And I'm telling, we should draft this guy from this position. So you're telling me that all these incomplete, I'm gonna call them incompletes.
We'll call them incompletes.
Yeah,
They'll be
because
completes by the end of this year, though. We'll have a definite feeling for what these guys are and are not by the end of this year, because you need Rakestraw to step up, right? He's got to do more this year.
yeah, because I love
Arnold.
Yeah, I love
Whether
Rick's
or not he ever becomes a elite level corner, if he can just be the best version of what he can be and not create plays for the other team, right? Not bail them out, right?
Yeah.
Not panic in big moments. That's all you really need him to do, right? Just don't panic in big moments. Don't
look at
try
this.
to make plays that aren't there to be made.
That's what happens right there. That's what happens. See?
Well, the first thing, Slay, let's be honest, Slay was just a better pure athlete than any of the guys you currently are trotting out in your secondary, right? Slay was a terrific athlete. I mean, it's just true. Like, he's just a better athlete, right? The guys you have who were his size in terms of stature don't run like that. And the guys you have can run are nowhere near his size. Like, he was a really complete guy. And Slay had come from a system where he'd been asked to do a lot of different things also, right? Mississippi State, where he was pretty multiple defense. So he wasn't surprised or taken aback by too many. Yes, gifted. That's a good way to put it, sir. He was gifted. The only questions really about him more had to do with if he was going to show certain levels of, like when he adjusted the level of competition, would he be willing to go ahead and take certain chances, right? The elite level corners take chances, right? That good corners don't, because they shouldn't. And that was the only real question. Would he be willing to take certain chances? Because when you're taking those chances, when it doesn't work out, you look terrible. You know what I mean? Like, it's bad when you take chances and they don't work out as a corner. And
Omar, got my member out there. I got a whole member chat if you see it. A whole member chat.
Okay, so
he was just like commenting on your belief on Terrion versus. That's what they keep saying in Detroit. Terrion is Slay.
Well,
that's how lost we are.
That's just
it reminds me of the Slay rookie year, and that's no offense to Low High. That's coming from the content creators that keep making these crazy arguments, and they keep comparing apples to mangoes, and
these are just rather different football players. And I don't dislike Terrion Arnold. I'm trying to be very clear about this. And if you run the right system, he could be a really good player. But if you're going to ask him to just man up against the Jordan Jeffersons of the world, that's not fair to him. He's not that kind of player. He's just not. He's a kind of player that if you say to him, we're going to play more cover 6 and you're going to get help from here, so just drive your guy this way or things like that. We're going to play this. We're going to play that. Use things you can do with him. Like, again, he's a smart guy. He's a good tackler. He wants to be great. He's going to work hard, but you just can't do certain things. You just have to say to yourself what he is. Now, he's going to continue to improve. He's a young player. He's not done.
Yeah.
But as you said, traits that guys like Christian Gonzalez and Stingley have, and Patrick Surtain, he doesn't have those. He doesn't have that stuff that they have. It's not fair to think he's going to become those kinds of players because they have stuff he doesn't have. It's like
put this on TikTok.
If you have like a Subaru Highlander and you pull up to a light next to like a Maserati, and you say, you start telling them, let's race. Like, what are you doing? Right? you know what I mean? Like, you have to realize what you're going to the line with. Like, you have to know what you're doing. A Subaru Highlander is a fine vehicle. You can do a lot with it, right? But you should not be drag racing Maseratis. Know what you can do with your vehicle and what you shouldn't do with your vehicle.
I love it. Man, this is a video in itself. Just talk about Terrion. That's gonna be that's gonna be good as hell. Woo. Anyway, it's funny when I talk to you on Vindicated. Like, oh, can I ask you something just to clarify for the people?
Yeah.
How many? I seen your Twitter page and I seen you at the in the booth at the Scouting Combine, or not the Scouting Combine. You was in the booth at the Senior Bowl. And I wanted to ask you, how many teams you still like keep in contact with? How many teams, how many clubs do you talk to?
So, on the record or off the record? On the record.
Oh, we're not internationally known. It's
Okay.
off the record.
Off the record. Okay, so back channel, like, bump into a guy at a bar. We're at the same hot dog stand. We're buying a suit, whatever it is. I run into a guy, right? 5 or 6 ish off, like informally. I've talked formally, like actually having a hey, let's talk on such a day, and we'll talk about players. 2. There's 2 teams where I actually have a relationship where they won't, put their name to anything, and I won't ever, say where I got it from, but they'll tell me straight up who bombed an interview, or who they found out certain things about, or who really doesn't give a damn about football, but does like money, right? And you can have if you're talented enough, you can still have a decent career if you just like money, right? And the only way of making this kind of money is football, right? That's one of the misnomers, that you have to love football to be a good football player. There have been some decent football players that they liked football just fine, but they loved money. They loved money, and they knew they couldn't get this kind of money he plays else but football. So they played football well. Then as soon as either they started to lose a little something or they made enough money, they shut it down. I mean, I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to name any names, but you could think of a guy who literally told his teammates halfway through a game, "It's been a slice. You guys go out there, you get this one, but I'm going to,
Vontae Davis.
You know what I'm talking about." But, hey, he had a 10-year run. He made a couple of Pro Bowls. He was a good football player. Was you guys going to die on a football field? No. Right? You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't going to be. Some guys, they're good at football. They even enjoy football. They don't love it. Like, that's one of the great sort of misunderstandings, is that everybody out there loves football. They don't all love it. They don't. Mm-hmm. But that's okay. Do you love your job? I mean, maybe you do, right?
Nope.
but you can be good at your job. You can be good at your job without loving your job, right? I want to make it clear that there are good football players who don't love football. Some people think you have to love football. Is it easier to coach a guy who loves football? If he's good, right? If he's still good. Like, I love football, but I wasn't that good. I mean, you still have to actually love. Loving football is cool, but you have to also be good enough at it to play. So getting back to the way the team's being constructed and what I think is coming up for this draft for Brad Holmes. While Brad Holmes doesn't necessarily have people whispering about his job security, he doesn't, right? He's secure. He's not going anyplace for a while. Whether you like it or not, he's secure. But there are some people wondering about some of the things that the team has decided to do, right? There's some whispers about a few things. And yes, there's that one truly egregious pick we talked about already when we talked the last time. He hasn't missed terribly many times. That's one of the really obvious ones. He needs to have 2 big hits in this draft, like nail 2, and have some solid, 2 home runs or a triple and a home run, and then just some solid, singles, doubles, right? Late, if he misses, nobody cares. But in those first 3 or 4 picks, if you get at least one stud, guy who comes in and he's good immediately, and then another guy who, even if he's a rotational player, is really effective, productive, even if he's not starting, whenever he gets on the field, he does something good, right? He's got to get one of those early too. And then he's got to get contributors, even if they're guys who are just coming in to give somebody a rest, or they're, coming in certain package of situations. But they have to be also effective when they come in. And then the last few guys are just depth guys, right?
That's crazy.
And if you happen to hit on one of those late guys, he's more than just depth. That's a bonus. What he can't afford to do is to miss early, right? And then if he does, then the whispers will start. Then there will be the, was he just kind of lucky early kind of stuff, and that kind of thing will start to get.
Do you think the last draft, first and foremost, thank you for that analysis on him. The second thing is, like, do you think the last draft affected? Because we went 15-2, and We went 15-2, and in Detroit, this is what they say. Spencer Raxter. I know these people. I could literally call their phones. So he told me on his Wilbur Sports live stream, he said, picking at 28, you're not gonna get a guy who's amazing and like a top contributor like Ada Hutchinson at 2. It's not the same. Like Karlaftis, TJ Watt. Like, what we talking about? What we talking about?
It is perfectly reasonable to expect to get a productive player as a rookie at 28. That's perfectly reasonable to expect. Now, here's what I would say. Because, I mean, can you imagine somebody telling the
opposite
Patriots,
of right?
telling the Patriots or telling the Eagles? Imagine telling the Eagles they can't expect to get a good football player where they pick. Like, the Eagles don't believe that. You know what I mean? They don't buy that this guy's just going to be a depth piece. No, they're going to find somebody good. I promise you. They're going to find somebody good where they pick. The Kansas City Chiefs better find somebody good, right? They're having some back end of the roster issues already, right? And they need to rebuild the plane while it's in the air because they want to keep contending. And that's so hard to do. The Patriots managed to do it. A few teams, it's so much harder than people realize to rebuild the plane while it's in the air, to not stop being good. Because some teams at least take a little break. Like the Ravens, good. Oh, a little break. And then good, right? That kind of thing, right? Most teams take a little break somewhere, right? The 49ers just took their little break, right? They took a little break, hey, good. Oh, a little break, right? Woo, that being good was exhausting. I'm going to take a little break, right? It happens. Take a little break. Yeah. When you are one of those teams where taking a little break isn't really in the plans or not something that's acceptable, it's hard. The good news is that I think there's going to be some teams that will reach ahead of you, right? Some teams are going to make some mistakes. Teams are going to panic. So you should have some good players fall to you, even at 28. Yes, even at 28. If there's a guy, once again, I keep mentioning him as a Rocco. If he's there, that's a good football player, right? That's a good football player. If he makes it to you, that's one of those, yes, thank you very much, right?
He's a good person. So there's a Rocco to Detroit. That'd be nice. 4-2-5, and we can jump in a 3-4. We can jump in a.
Yep. He can do all that. He can stand up. He can play with his hand in the dirt. He's not the biggest cat in the world, but he can set edges. He's strong for his size. He could probably get a little bigger without losing anything. If you want him to get up to the maybe low 260s, he could probably do it. But I like him. I like him about 254. He could probably play a little heavier, but not too much heavier. But he's a good football player, like period. Amongst the defensive backs, right? If by some minor miracle, a guy like Malachi Starks fall into your lap, you just giggle, right? That's just a giggle moment, like, right? Because it shouldn't happen, and it probably won't. But if for some reason somebody once again reaches, at some other positions, or he somehow slides to you, but I think most likely you're going to have a chance at one of the top guards. Well, obviously one top guard, because still to this day people don't take guards early, even if they're really good. People just don't take them. In the early part of the draft, guards just usually aren't taken. So you've got a chance at pick one of them, right? Whichever one of the top guards, one of them is definitely going to be there for you. You might still have a shot at one of the tackles. Now, not the top, but like the next cut, the next tier of tackles will be there for you. So you may have Josh Simmons might be gone. Mimbu is almost certainly gone, and of course, obviously, you're going to see. You might have a chance at like the fourth or fifth tackle. You might have a chance at the best D tackle, or maybe one of the best D tackles. I mean, we might see maybe one or two D tackles go ahead of you.
Oh, you got a question.
Why don't they take guards early? Because a lot of teams don't think that they're important enough, which is stupid, but that's what they believe. Yeah. There are teams that just don't think guards are that important. They think that they are fungible. They're replaceable. I can always get a guard. That's what round 5 is for. It's for guards. I mean, there's teams that literally think that. Well, round 5's here. Time to take a guard. Like, that's their literal drafting philosophy. They literally think to themselves, okay, well, I got to get a left tackle. Okay, that's got to go early. Got to get a pass rusher. That's early. If they need a quarterback, that trumps everything. And though those are things they think of as like early. And then running backs, we can take those next. Guards, especially if you have a shorter quarterback, which you guys don't, but if you have a shorter quarterback, your guards are in some ways more important than your tackles.
Yeah.
Because if you're Russ Wilson,
Yeah.
you don't care what the you don't care, but like it's the that gap, that cup of the center and the two guards is where you need to step into to see things, right? So if you're Drew Brees, for certain quarterbacks, like that's actually more important. But I think the fact that for a long time, people just thought of guards as just strong, easily replaceable people, right? Which I
Refrigerators.
think is just silly, right? Right. Now, and we've seen how silly it is now that free agency has shown you that guards are getting paid, right? So maybe this will change. I'm going to study the next few drafts carefully to see if maybe word has gotten out that,
Yeah.
especially special guards,
It
should go
also
up.
makes it hard because you have guys like Mahogany who get drafted in like the 4th or 6th round or whatever it is, and these guys come out and they were good. You know, that was the running back argument for so many years. Like, well, I found Miles Sanders in the 3rd round and he had 1,000 yards. I don't need Saquon. You don't need Saquon, and you.
See, this is back to draft philosophy, right? At some point, you say elite players. If you find an elite player, you take it. I don't care if you've got 5 good players at that position. Take the elite player. Like that, some teams realize that you take the elite player no matter what. I don't care if he plays a position you don't care about. I don't care if he plays a position where you're deep. Take the elite player. Drafting just for positional need is maybe the worst possible way to draft. Yep. There's a lot, right? It's another reason, right? Is that those penetrating 3 techniques. Aaron Donald reinforced those teams that had decided to just spend the undrafted free agent signing period and the last couple of rounds on guards, why that may not be a great idea, because he would take a guard and throw him at your quarterback. So people began to realize, okay, we need a guy that can at least fight Luke Cage for a couple of seconds. Because that's what it was like, right? I've talked to guys, it's like, I didn't know a person could be that strong. I had an NFL player who was a 6-7 year veteran talk about facing Aaron Donald for the first time. So I didn't know a person. I didn't know a human being could be that strong. Like I didn't know he's blocked NFL defensive linemen for 6 years going into this season. And he said, I didn't know a human being could be that strong. I didn't know they made people like that, right? So when you find elite, different players who are just different, take them, right? Just take them. When people say, "Oh, I can't take a fill in the position that early," right? Okay, guess what? Somebody will, right? Somebody will.
They keep falling.
They'll keep falling, right? Which is even worse because now a better team gets them. And now when that team is beating your head in, you're like, wow.
Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, like someone said, Roddy Troy said in the comments. He said it. Like, why was he a wide receiver? All this crazy stuff. Bill Polian, these relics that never, relics. Dude look like he should be getting collagen shots before he go on TV. This dude is wild, bro. Like, he's a. They don't even understand how. They understand where that comes from. He's gonna be a running back. Like they know where it comes from, but they like act like they don't acknowledge it, like it's new. Like I just think he's a running back. Why do you think that? Well, I don't see that. He threw for 3,800 yards. I don't see the accuracy. He had 40 touchdowns. I don't see it.
So it's one thing when what would have been fair to say is that he at times would miss some easy throws because it was true. At times, but even in his first few years in the pros, Lamar would miss some easy ones, right? Like you'd see him thread the needle on some dig route to Mark Andrews, be like, wow. And then in the same game, he would like bounce, one to a running back and be like, huh, right? Where the ball goes like 6 yards, he bounced it. Like, what the hell happened there? So that would be fair to say, right? That early throughout his college career and early in his pro career, even he missed some layups. He missed some easy ones. That's different from a guy like Jalen Milroe, right? Where it's just all a mess, right? He wasn't a mess, right? There was things to be cleaned up or worked on, but his mechanics were actually pretty darn clean. And his accuracy, I don't know what they're talking about. Accuracy. He was accurate. He was. Did he miss some easy ones? Yes, but was he? He was more accurate than Josh Allen. You know what I mean? Like way more accurate than Josh Allen. Like
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure where some of this stuff comes from. Or I do
Yeah.
actually, let me rephrase it. I know exactly where some of this stuff comes from. And I'm hoping that the success of Jalen Hurts, the success of obviously Lamar's going to win a Super Bowl. And when that happens, that will help. We just saw Jalen Hurts win one. We're
Yeah.
going to see the erosion of some of this ossification of thinking that you just noticed that it's going slowly but surely being chipped away
But
because you can't
yeah.
deny it when these guys keep winning Super Bowls.
Yeah. But the biggest problem for me is like you have people like Tom Brady saying that playing quarterback has diminished. And I used to, these guys are great outside the pocket, but quarterback play is just terrible. And then you got fans who smoke 20 cigarettes a week, 20 cigarettes a day. They're like, yeah, he's just a Andre Ware. I'm like, man, I get tired of people, man. I honestly, after this stream, I'm not talking to no Lions fans about nothing. There's no reason to talk to no fan.
No reason to talk about that again. So, and even Andre Ware, had he been in a different situation, probably would have been a better quarterback.
That's it. They act like they won a championship or something. They act like they was like he just couldn't put it together. Like they act like they was in futility for years. And they act like they was the grit guys back then. Like, what was your record with Marty Mornhinweg and Harrington and all these guys who came from great program? Mariucci was literally the offensive coordinator and had the catch on his record, had T.O., had Jeff Garcia, had a number one offense. Yes. And you guys, y'all got Mariucci and he went to TV. we had Mariucci, he went straight to TV. He went straight to DVD.
Yeah.
He never picked up a coaching sheet again.
Yeah, he I think he would admit he burned out a little bit. I think he would admit that some of his love for the game started to sort of slowly ooze out of him towards the end of his time there. It was the toughest job in coaching, right? So I give total credit to the current regime. This was regularly discussed as the toughest job in coaching for a while, right? So the current regime has succeeded already. Now, not the ultimate success because they haven't hoisted Lombardi, but the fact that people discuss Detroit Lions football, first of all, it's discussed nationally, right, by everybody. There's nobody in the national media that hasn't discussed the Detroit Lions if they cover football. Everyone's talked about Detroit. Some people are going to pick them to win it all. They play sexy, and you know it when green goes on the podium. Oh, no, I don't think they will. That would not be something they should do.
Okay.
Plus, he's probably going to be a little later in the draft when sort of the pageantry has died down a little bit. I think that, like I said, while there are some teams that will usually take a risk on him, I don't think it's going to be in the first round. I think it's going to be somewhere in that maybe mid to late second.
Nope.
I don't
see.
think
That's what they do. Nope. I was just talking her up today. Nope. He got 6 parking tickets. You said
9 unpaid parking tickets, and okay, so they're talking about the traffic stop thing. I think at one point there was a traffic stop that went sideways with him, but I think that was mostly on the officer, quite frankly, because he didn't go to jail. It did get ugly, right? And there was some of that, stuff involved in that traffic stop. But he wasn't charged. He did get detained. There was some stuff around that traffic stop.
I got a Bears fan paying attention.
Right.
He making notes.
Right. So there was one traffic stop that definitely went sideways, but that's not that by itself isn't a crime, right? That's you and an officer having an unpleasant exchange. And so yes, it definitely was not a good experience for Mr. Pierce, but
she asking me, am I sure? She asking you, are you sure?
Am I sure about what? What am I?
Uh,
Am I sure about which part?
that Pierce got the charges. He don't have no charges.
So Pierce, well, I mean, 9 unpaid parking tickets, I guess you could say, are charges. In that there was a bench warrant or whatever. It's like you've got 9 unpaid parking tickets. So anybody who has 9 old parking tickets, eventually you get a bench warrant. That's how that works in America. They don't like it when you don't pay the money for your parking tickets. But
Don't you talk
that's
to the
not the
coach?
guy with
It's crazy.
the serious, scary stuff, right? That's not him. That's Mike Green, if that's what you're talking about. But yeah, he did have a one sideways, or what do you want to call it, one bad traffic stop, right? If that's
okay. She's all right. I'm all right. I'm not even gonna comment. She says it's smoke and mirrors now. Never mind. Never mind. I'm gonna just let. Oh yeah, let me. She says smoke and mirrors. It's smoke and mirrors. This is what I deal with in Detroit. That's what I do. It's smoke and mirrors. Like his charges are smoke and mirrors, and then the James Pierce charges. You're wrong. Just say you're wrong. Let it be wrong. Okay? At least just you're wrong. Okay? You're wrong. It's not even.
So let me say this, and here's the difference, right? If you talk to the coaching staff at Virginia, they will tell you that Mike Green was, a problem for them. And he eventually goes to Charles Huff, and to his credit, he told Charles Huff about what had gone on when he was at Virginia, owned up to it at the time. Charles Huff is a person who believes in second chances and, turned it around. No problems at all in his time at Marshall. But yes, there's some serious stuff in Mike Green's background.
Yeah.
The stuff
And
with James Pierce. Some people said, he had 1 foot out the door the whole time that he was at Tennessee. But that's not what his coaches say, right? If the coaches now, I mean, you could say that's his coaches defending their player, but did Texas A&M's coaches step up when Johnny Manziel had character concerns? They basically pled the fifth, right? They were like, oh, no comment, right? This is a guy who's supposed to be a, program changing player in the history of Texas A&M football, and they took the fifth when people asked questions about Manziel. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
When somebody said he had the quote unquote worst character report of any player in the draft class. Now, once again, that's our friend Anonymous Scout who said that. Good old Anonymous Scout. How are you doing, Anonymous Scout? Now, do I talk to scouts who want to be off the record? Sure, but they don't put out stuff like that unless they can tell me more specific things, right? So this person said the worst character report. In what way? He's not a people person. He doesn't like people. He doesn't like being around people, except when he's actually playing football. And as soon as he's done playing football, he wants to take his behind home. That part is true. If you want to say that he's not friendly, he's not gregarious, that's 100% true. He doesn't like talking to the press. That's 1,000,000% true. He's not going to be the guy who's, shaking hands, kissing babies, helping to teach the disabled how to walk. That is not James Pierce. Like, that's not him. Now, I know that there's teams that will be put off by that, by the fact that he's not looking to go visit your children's hospital. He's not looking to read to the blind. Like, that's not what he's into. He wants to play football and take his behind home. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So
you obviously have relationships with NFL teams. You've obviously been vetted. I obviously looked. I've seen the pictures of you at the scouting combine after this with the media pass. I doubt that you would be inaccurate. That's why you're on this show.
Well, here's what I'll say. Here's what I will say. Is there stuff that I don't know about some prospects? Sure. So, but what I can tell you is all the nebulous character stuff. Nobody has come forth and said, here's what, other than the 9 unpaid parking tickets and the one traffic stop that definitely went left. There's nothing else that shows up on the docket, on the court system. Yeah. In the case of Mr. Green, we have actual things that we know actually happened. And some of the other guys, there's things that actually happened. We knew what they did. There's the sheriff we're taking this guy someplace, right? That's different.
Right.
In the case of Mr. Pierce, other than that one traffic stop that went left, everything else is literally, the kind of thing you pay a fine for, a summons or whatever, right? That's that kind of stuff.
What do you think of
Hey,
CJ West?
CJ West. Thank you.
I love CJ West. And I love CJ West and Sanders.
Yeah. That's probably a day 3 guy, but a good one.
Yeah.
And when I think about the kinds of things you can do with him, right? So we talk a lot about multiple fronts, right? That's one of the things that comes up a lot. So let's say you get one day 2 D tackle. Let's say you went, offensive line or whatever with your first pick. And now you got lucky and Darius Alexander made it to you in the second, right? Woo, right? So now you've got a guy with close to elite level potential as 1D tackle. Now you want to add the Chicago kid, right? CJ West. Got a chance to see him play a little bit in his high school days. And he's going to be a fun player, well, for you or for someone else. So he's another guy that is good at most areas. So if you throw on the tape, right, he's played against a high level competition, was really good at Kent State, right, just dominant. And so now you say to yourself, and they played some Big Ten schools when he was there and had some good tape there. Then he goes goes up to Indiana, right? And while he's there, he played a lot of good teams, right? I remember watching this kid when he was back at Nazareth Academy, right here in beautiful Illinois in the playoffs, which that year I think they had on the campus of Illinois State, if memory serves me correctly. Go Redbirds. And, he originally was supposed to go to Minnesota and sort of surprised people by going to Kent State, which was wise because he got on the field immediately and was really good. Was a third team guy, all conference, or third or second team, depending on whose all conference team you look at, pretty much right out of the box. He's disruptive. He's smart. He had a fumble recovery. He had a fumble forced, had a couple of sacks. Here's the thing I like about him. He's fundamentally sound also, right? And he helped to turn around Indiana's program. I mean, it wasn't like he did it by himself, but Indiana, Signetti and that the talent he brought in with him completely changed the way we see Indiana football. He's one of those guys. When he's at Kent State, right, in his years at Kent State, before the transfer, he had 110 tackles, 19 tackles for loss. He knows how to play with leverage. He's a smart processor. Look at how many times he sniffs out screens, right? That's one of my favorite things to look at D tackles. When Ndamukong Suh was at Nebraska, the thing I loved about him, right? People talk about his nasty streak, his power, whatever, and all those things were definitely there. The thing I loved about him was how many times he blew up screenplays. He snipped out screens and would either crush them from the front side, or sometimes where it was headed, run them down from behind, from the backside, right? And destroy a screenplay by running it down from the backside. He was so smart and so athletic that he could destroy a screen either from the front or the backside. You can't say that about everybody, but West isn't quite there. He's not that. He's not Ndamukong Suh. I'm not saying that, but he's a really, really good football player.
I love that.
He has really good lateral movement.
Okay.
He can stack, a guard and kind of, get movement back into the backfield at times.
Yeah.
He's got some pass rush ability. He's not elite, but he's got some pass rush ability. He's got competitive toughness. He doesn't want to simply occupy a blocker. He wants to, impose on that guy. Yeah. He doesn't have great length, right? So the knock on him is he doesn't have great length, 31.5-inch arms. I am, much smaller than him, and I have longer arms than him by about an inch. So people don't love that.
You said we can run multiple sets with him?
But you can, right? The only thing he doesn't have, in my mind, that you would, but yeah, you can play him at 3-tech. You can kick him around. He can play cock nose shade. He can play 4-eye. His pass rush arsenal right now is limited, but you can see flashes.
Yeah.
He's a bull rush arm over, right? Like most interior guys, bull rush arm over, right? That's basically what you see. He can learn other stuff, but the basics of him being a pass rusher are already there. Like as an interior pass rusher, you can see his first step explosiveness is good, not great, and occasionally he takes some chances. Like he'll see something and go with it, and when he's right, it's brilliant. But when he's wrong, he opens up some gashes, some holes, some gash plays for people.
What do you think of Broderick Martin? This was a question they wanted to ask you. I think someone tried to ask you, but we had just ended. And
Okay.
I think this will be the last question because my wife got to work in the morning. I got great daddy duties because my little daughter wake up at 6 a.m. So
Oh,
yeah,
so
she wake up at 6.
that's infantry right there, man. 0600. So Broderick, so you asking me to sort of talk about what I think he could be for you guys? Is that what the question is?
Yeah. What's your take on him? Because he hasn't got no snaps. He hasn't done anything. He hasn't been
Right.
anything. And
Right.
we saw flashes of eliteness and we saw flashes of greatness, or however you want to put it, in the preseason, but he's never been consistent. So
Right.
what do you think he could be?
Yeah, well, part of it is he has to stay healthy, right? That was part of the issues. He had nagging injuries last year. I think he had 2 separate injuries, if memory serves me correctly. So that's part of the issue. But we mentioned Red Bryant a second ago. If he puts it all together, he could be your, well, maybe not. Red Bryant might be a little rich, but like I'm gonna go as far down as like Timu, more like Target. He could be your Target, Red Bryant, right?
Brandon Mebang, could he be that?
Yeah, only taller. He's a tall dude for a tackle. So yes, he could be your Mebane type guy. He can be that guy that eats blocks, and then when you tell him, okay, now you can just go, he can get some upfield push. And the thing I think is most, other than just being sheer power and size, which he has in spades, and the ability, I think, to be moved around at times as well. I mean, that's another guy that you could think of multiplicity. He's a guy that could give you that. The time he spent away from the field, he toned his body up, right? He tightened up his body. So that's if you're looking for an upside. And I think being around DJ Reader is going to be the best thing of all the things that we've talked about, because all the things that he didn't know how to do yet, DJ Reader's great at. So my hope is that those guys are like training camp roommates, right? I mean, I would have these two guys spend time with each other, extensive time with each other. I fell in love with him a little bit back at Western Kentucky. And, like any Steelers fan who sees a big mobile defensive tackle, like that's our thing, man. We love that. That's our, like the Steelers get excited about big mobile defensive tackles the way that normal teams get excited about, running backs and wide receivers. So, there's a contingent of Keanu Benton fans who are like, feverishly excited about him for this season. We're thinking he's going to have a big old breakout year. So if Broderick Martin, first of all, is healthy, that's the first thing. He's a guy that stays healthy, number one. And you allow him to do the things he's good at. But once again, a guy like DJ Reader helps him. Like he needs to, like a lot of taller defensive tackles, sometimes anchoring can be a bit of an issue for him. Reader is terrific, right, at anchoring. He can just, basically put you in stasis, right? Oh, you think you're going to pull out and block me? Oh yeah, try that. Boom, right? And now he meets you at the point and nothing's being done. There's no business being done. Now your running back is having to pad his feet or bounce it out. And that means you're spilling it. Now your Malcolm Rodriguez is getting a tackle out of this, right?
Yeah.
And so DJ Reader is going to help him a lot. Those guys should spend a lot of time together.
Mm-hmm. That should be the case. Dang, Brad saw something. He said he saw something. Got Reader in there. But I'm not gonna hold you. I'm in the stream here, man. And Bill, I know we talked earlier today, and this was supposed to be like what you look for scouting, and like how would you draft?
So I'll do a really, really quick thing. So for me, I want to know if a guy is productive, and then athletic. If he's both of those things, now look at strength of schedule. Like who is he playing against? If he's at least average strength of schedule, an elite level athlete, and elite productive, that's one of my guys, right? Now, if a guy has two of the three, right? Okay, either the strength of schedule is really poor, but he's still an elite level athlete and still super productive. I'm gonna keep digging, but he's probably still one of my guys. If the production isn't there, now I'm trying to figure out why the production isn't there. If it's his fault, right? Now I'm not so much in love. Right now, now you're a guy maybe take a late flyer on. If the athletic ability isn't there, but you're productive and it's a strong level of competition, now I have to find out, is the scheme helping, right? Are they funneling things to you? Are they making it happen for you? Because that can happen, right? You can be a guy where you can be a Mike linebacker where everything just feeds you tackles, right? So it looks like you're super productive because the system's set up to feed you tackles.
Yeah.
Right. So the thing that helps me to separate out is solo tackles. If a player gets a much higher than normal level percentage of solo tackles, no matter what position you play, that player has a much better chance of succeeding. Guys with really high solo tackle production, one, are smart, right? Because dumb guys don't get a lot of solo tackles. That's one of the great separators. There's never been a dumb defender who got a high level of solo tackles. If you're a great athlete, you can get a high level of tackles just because you see it late and you run over and jump in there, right? I'm in there too, right? Because you're athletic enough to catch up. But if you're getting a high level of solo tackles, you're beating everyone else there. It means you're probably a pretty good athlete, but also you're seeing it fast, right? Solo tackles. You're beating everyone else to the spot. And then on offense, in the old days, I looked at scheme, right? But now everybody's running some variation of the same scheme in college, pretty much, unless you're like a service academy or Iowa, right? Other than basically service academies in Iowa, everyone else is running some version of spread. So now I'm looking for what flavor of spread, basically, right? And is it one that is super simplified, where they're spoon feeding the offense to you, or is it one where you have to do a little more? Like, Alabama, though it's a spread like everybody else, is a little less simplified than what's going on at, say, Ole Miss, or what's going on at, say, well, actually, Ole Miss is a mix of things. Let me pick on somebody. Somebody mentioned earlier Tennessee or what they did at Baylor for so many years, though they've now gone away from that offense. What Sean Lewis did in his time at Kent State, right, where they ran that flash fast offense, right? It was off that Baylor version of air raid. So that is simplified to a point where I worry about certain things from those offensive players, except the running backs, right? The running backs, if they're making it happen, they're just making it happen because they don't help the running backs at all, but they help the wide receivers and they help the quarterback. The running backs have just make it happen, but just making it happen because those wide line splits.
Oh, my bad. What's considered a high number of tackles for that?
Well, it's not a number. It's a percentage. So I'm going to leave you with this, and then I will let you close the sucker down. Don't just look at counting stats because those things will lie to you. Look at percentage. So though it's more tedious, how many tackles did that team have, right? And then how many of those teams' total solo tackles was this player? It's the solo tackle percentage. It's the market share that tells you who are the smartest players on your team.
So right? I might have to like do like the hard math. Is that stat readily available, or I have to do a hard math?
Yes, that is readily available. So if you go to @Geometrics, right? That's my boy Jim Coburn. He has decades worth of longitudinal data on solo tackle market share, quarterback production. For quarterback production, he has stuff going back to 1958. So, and he does era-specific comparisons. So you can see how guys compare against the guys in their own era because he breaks it down into chunks.
Is it spelled like that?
No, it's not. It's Jim as in Jim Coburn. So it's JimCobern is his name, Jim Coburn. But it's Geometrics, JIME. The M is shared. So it's Jim and then Etrix, right? The Etrix, so it's so it's Jimetrics, and he has terrific work. Check out his YouTube. Sign up for his Patreon. He will give you. You can go from being a data idiot to at least knowing what you sound like within a few weeks of yep. Only the M is shared, so it's just one. Nope, no R.
Oh,
You're almost there.
yeah.
Jimecrics. Jimetrics. Yeah. So Jimetrics. No, yeah. There. I think we got it this time.
Yeah.
There we go.
Time.
There we go. Jimetrics. That's it. That's the one. He's been doing decades worth of data work on a bunch of on thousands of players going back in some cases to the 1950s. He's got the most thoroughly researched data set I have ever found of anybody that does this kind of stuff. So if you don't want to calculate it out yourself, yes, there's somebody who's done it already, and we'll even give you like charts that sort of show how guys compare.
Okay. Well, if he's on Twitter, I'm gonna find him. If he has a website,
He's very much on Twitter, and he has a YouTube channel. So definitely check him out.
Yeah,
Jim
sure.
Coburn, last name is Cobern, is definitely worth checking out. He's been my friend for many years. He does great work, and some smart college team is going to eventually make him their director of analytics, and they're going to win.
Oh yeah, I got to get with him now. We gotta bring the Spirit of Detroit analytics team all together. Get with him now.
Reach out to him. Reach out to him. He's one of the best guys out there.
Thank you for your time, Bill. This is always
my pleasure.
Great.
Always. We will do at least maybe one more before the draft comes around. I promise.
Okay. What do you think? Someone was talking about having one after the draft. You think you'll be free after the draft?
We could definitely do one after the draft. Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I will definitely make sure. And I want to bring you on. I want to bring you on during the draft, probably day 2, either day 2, if you're available, day 2 and day 3, maybe both, to talk about what you think, obviously what's happening, and then, once again, against your ideal world, like how close have they come to your ideal world, and what things you would have wanted to see happen with the Detroit Lions draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to be on your station, and I love. I don't know. I love talking to you. I gotta show and pay homage. You didn't have to come here to little old Spirit of Detroit 3 years ago, and you did, and you didn't have to come here now, and you did. So, no, I appreciate the acumen, and and that's why I'm starting to like not. If I'm not interviewing players or scouts, I'm not gonna have nobody like. I'll do collaborations, but I'm not talking to no fans for real. I'm not talking to Jimmy Butler in his little garage and he's doing a stream. I think Hendon Hooker should get traded for a cheese 7. I'm not talking to none of them dudes no more. No, bro. You can't take it back to 1985 to 1986 to the West Coast offense that was made in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm not listening to none of that shit. I'm not doing none. I'm not doing none of that collaboration with people that dumb. No. I think Jared Goff is a good guy. Like, I'm not doing none of that.
Well, he's a terrific person. He's a terrific person. Yeah. But here and I mean, you could definitely win a Super Bowl with a guy like him. We've seen Nick Foles. We've seen people act like you've got to be this Hall of Famer. In the right situation with the right team around you, you can win with a quarterback who just knows what he can and can't do and does what he can do at a high level. Right?
Yeah.
Jared Goff can do everything Nick Foles can do. Right? I mean, so we've seen Nick Foles take the field, right, against a supposed greatest of all time kind of team, or one of the greatest of all time kind of teams. One of the greatest of all time coaches, one of the greatest of all time players at quarterback, and he left the field with his team victorious. Now, he didn't win the game by himself because that's not how football works. But you can build the proper team around a guy like Goff and win a Super Bowl. Now, would you prefer to have a guy that can just make things happen? And that makes it easier, obviously. That makes it easier if a guy can just play within the structure until the structure breaks down and then just make something happen, right?
Yes,
that obviously is easier.
Yes,
because that's like stealing, right? When a guy can just create a play after everything falls apart.
Yes,
I mean, because you still get the credit as a coach, and you didn't really do it, right? You get there, hey, Well, that's cool. But with this team the way it's constructed now, your coaches have to make most of what happen in your offense, except for what guys do after the ball gets in their hands, like your running backs and your wide receivers can still make things happen after it. But getting the ball to them part with a chance to succeed is mostly on your coaching, designing, and calling plays. But you can win Super Bowls that way because we've seen it done. And if the 49ers do it with Brock Purdy, it'll be because of what I just said. All that stuff, design and calling of the plays. That counts too. That still works. But yes, we will definitely do something again before the draft and then after the draft. So I look forward to it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, this collaboration is great. It's definitely made an impression on me in trying to get more professional on my channel and having more professional individuals on my channel. And it just makes it way better in the trajectory of moving forward. So I appreciate you letting me grow. And I honestly scout the way you scout. Honestly, I'm not lying to you. I look for production and analytics, or production and athleticism. And I look for those two things, but I never have those nuanced things that you have. I was just like, is he productive? Does he pop out on tape? Does he
That's
have
a good place to start though, right?
Yeah.
If somebody sends me somebody, I like when they don't tell me which guy I'm supposed to look for, right? And if I don't find that guy, now I'm like, right? But if they I like when they just say, hey, watch, and tell me who it is you notice, right? That's what I like to do. And so players have started sending me their tape, right? And players don't play that game. They make sure you know who they are. I'm number so and so. I line up at such and such. It's like, yeah, okay, I got it. I got it. Okay. And the funny thing is, that's often how I find other players, though. Sorry, guys. Sometimes I find the other guy, some other player. Sometimes the team. Sometimes your teammate. It's like, oh, wait a second, who's that? Who's 74? And now I'm digging into that guy. But that's one of my favorite things is to find the guy I'm not looking for, or not supposed to be looking for. And once again, that's how I told you. That's how I first got on Darius Slay, because I was supposed to be scouting Jonathan Banks, his teammate, and I was like, oh, this junior college kid, the kid from the JUCO, I think he's better. And at first I was quiet about it because I thought, people would think I was nuts.
Yeah.
But by the end of Slay's first year at Mississippi State, I was like, no. You guys were excited about the wrong corner. Like, this Slay kid's the better corner.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a good place to stop. So I will definitely, like I said, we'll hang out. We'll talk again soon. I am looking forward to working with you consistently around the Lions. And then I'm definitely going to, do some more digging and thinking into this, because this year is as you said, it's a watershed. It's a really important year in the history of Detroit football, and people are going to grade the Lions harsher now, right, than they used to. Right? I mean, things have changed.
People are going to grade the Lions harder. Yeah,
you're not the fun, plucky story anymore. You're not the poor kid anymore. You're not the poor kid anymore.
Look. Look. At least I've been grading them hard this whole time.
Right. You had a slightly different approach to some people.
Yeah. They wanted to start up the game manager question. Maybe next time, for sure. We'll start up the game manager stuff. Game manager.
Well, I mean, frankly, Tom Brady was a game manager at first, right? You can be a game manager and grow. I would say what I like is a game manager, or someone who being a game manager who, but when they ask more of him, can do more, right?
Oh yeah.
I showed you what Bob Greasy did in 3 Super Bowls. Remember that, right?
Yeah, Bob Greasy won 3 Super Bowls.
Right, and he was exactly when people mentally try to figure out what a game manager is. That's him, right? I mean, he literally looked like an accountant, is what he looked like. But he was a literal game manager. And they went to 3 Super Bowls and won 2 of them. So what I'll say, and obviously the game has changed since then, it's more quarterback centric now, but you can still win with game managers. You just have to you have to manage the game at an elite level.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Game manager.
Right. You can't be an okay game manager and win the Super Bowl.
A game manager has to evolve into a field general. See, a starter can athlete can evolve into a superstar, and it's very quickly because you see the two levels of attack. But the game manager has to become a field general, because when you game manage, it's I'm not trying to lose the game, but then you have to evolve at some point where I'm trying to win the game. Brock Purdy against Detroit evolved at some point and said, I'm trying to win this game. And he had 30-yard running, and he did this and this and this and had 3 touchdowns. And, you know, all was history when they lost the Super Bowl. So, yeah, you know, I'll talk to you. It's been great. It's been fun.
We will talk again soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You have a good evening.
You as well.
It is the beginning of another chapter. That part of the story of the statue's deep spiritual significance. The spirit of Detroit.